Light one up, somebody.
All right, so best we can do. Again, yeah, there you go. Pop the top. Light this thing. Episode number 311 of the Cleveland Moto podcast. That's
max headroom there.
That's just this is bourbon with just a hint of orange curacao in it, and that's good. That works. And then a little bit of that Pope's habanero orange syrup. So that's.
Well, before you got on, I was telling the guys about that Polish juice that's 196% alcohol or whatever.
That stuff, when he told me to go upstairs and get that, I knew exactly what the fuck he was talking about. And that happens at that bar is like, you're having a good time and everybody's just doing their thing. And then Steph's like, go get the ones with the green caps. And I was like, I think I know where this is headed because you said you were Polish, and as soon as you said you were Polish, then Steph was like, oh well, since you're Polish, let me go and bring on the Polish lighter fluid. I'd remind the public that proof is twice percentage.
Right.
It's very simple. It's not like a science or anything. If something is 100 proof, it's 50%. So it almost makes the proofing thing irrelevant.
Was it by weight or volume?
It doesn't matter.
My headache.
No, it would be different because alcohol weighs less than water.
Yeah, but it's still a percentage. I mean, that's they say something. If something's 30% alcohol, it doesn't matter whether you have 10 pounds of it or 10 gallons of it. It's still 30% alcohol. It's still 60 proof.
So what do you think the 4%? If it's 96% alcohol by volume, what's the 4%? Water?
That's the joke. I mean, it's 96% alcohol. It's 192 proof.
That's the genie that lives in the bottle.
Right. That's the glass in the fucking
spirit.
bottle.
That's what rots out your jets in your bowl and blocks up your bowl.
That shit. It's just, and like Steve made a mention. Steve's like, well, it's remarkably drinkable.
Yeah.
It's remarkably drinkable. It's real easy to drink. It's just because it just kills everything as it goes in. So anything it comes in contact with dies and stops sending a neural response.
Right.
And then you're fucked.
And that's one of them you want to really make sure you don't inhale after you drink it.
Correct. Yeah, that's probably the best advice. That's probably safety tip number one is don't inhale.
And that's why it gets smoother as you drink it because you kill all your fucking cells and it's just like,
it's so inhale first, then drink.
Yeah.
And what's funny is somebody imported that all the way from fucking Poland. Well, you could make that in Cleveland in your basement. It doesn't need to come from Poland. It doesn't need to buy a ticket on a boat. It just can be made. You can make it in your garage.
Well, that's why when you look at the certain drinks and stuff, especially like when I was buying that, what the hell, the wormwood shit.
Yeah.
Some of it's made with
absinthe.
Well, some of it's made like that was made with beet alcohol.
Sure.
Well, yeah, because when you make alcohol, it is alcohol. It doesn't matter what you make it with. Once it's pure distilled alcohol, it is alcohol or ethanol. Like
you're getting rid of everything that made it beat something.
Yeah,
whatever it's made of.
There's no longer water. There's no anything. It's you've extracted.
It's actually hard to get alcohol to come out of a still at that proof.
That's right.
Outside of a laboratory. Mm-hmm. So they have to do something to that probably after the initial distillation to get the proof up that high.
I agree.
Double still it or something like that.
Yeah,
because that's the whole part of where you got to cut the head and the tail off because some of the first stuff that comes out is actually acetone and stuff. You don't want to drink the first stuff that comes out of a still.
Nope.
And then the tail of it has other stuff. So you want like the body of it is the best part. It was the pure alcohol, right?
Yeah.
Well, the stuff that comes out at the end is called Janus stone.
Now he's ripping on himself.
So it begins.
I figured I might as well get the party started.
That was the only comment that we got this week, by the way, too, was the one of our podcast listeners was nice enough to say, all right, that's great. You know, I've heard every Janus joke I can hear. And then there was a whole other episode where you had to go back into it and do it all over again. And then a third episode where we revisited it again. So you know what? That's fine. Here we are. We made it back.
I will try not to Janus
So
if I can.
Exactly. Yeah.
I read an article today talking about COVID and how a good, healthy immune system can help. And they say one of the best things that you can do is masturbation creates a lot of white blood cells. So I vowed to single-handedly take out coronavirus for all you guys.
Or double-handedly.
You could double-handedly take it out.
Wait, so does that mean you're going to come over and jerk us off?
That's how a vaccine works. It's
Individually.
not you getting it.
I mean, it's not going to help. You just jerk yourself off.
But yeah, because then, take it down. Once I get it, then we can do the herd thing afterwards,
And do the whole herd.
But I heard it takes only 365 doses a year.
All right. If that's the case, I'm set.
Yeah, right. As long as we're not talking 1,200 to 1,500, because the chafing would be too much to deal with.
Hey, I've got some breaking news here.
Okay.
Pfizer announced today that Viagra will soon be available in liquid form and will be marketed by Pepsi Cola as a power beverage suitable as a use as a mixer. It will now be possible for a man to literally pour himself a stiff one.
Hey.
Obviously, we can no longer call it a soft drink, and it gives new meaning to the name cocktail, highballs, and of course, a good old-fashioned stiff drink. Pepsi will market the new concoction under the name of Mount and Dew. That's just a warm-up.
That's a good warm-up. That's a good warm-up for the joke of the day.
Mount
So did everybody do your
and
homework?
Dew.
Yeah.
Everyone did their homework?
Yeah.
I don't know what the homework was.
Oh, so what I did was, so Ben Big, one of
Yeah,
our
Mrs. Smith gets credit for that joke, by the way.
That's a solid one. So Ben Big did a really good job. He's one of our Patreons and one of our listeners, and he sent us a link to the Rob Report, the robreport.com. And as you guys know, Rob Report, they have opinions on everything, and they have professionals. And I have to say, whoever did this article, whoever compiled this list, actually did a really fucking great job. And what they're saying is this is the top 25 motorcycles of all time.
Well, of the last 100 years.
Right, exactly. Yeah, thank you. Because the ones prior to 1920 were just, there's a whole different category for those, right? So I gotta say,
they nailed this. This is so fucking good. Look at that thing.
I gotta give him credit. So what they said was, what did he show, Steve? He said the very, very top, his number one pick, right? So his absolute number one pick of the show is really, this BMW R32. And this BMW R32, it's beautiful. I mean, it's just art. I could sit and look at it all day long. And it's kind of neat because when you are looking at it, you get to remember that it's like, oh, you get to ride that too, you know? And very cool because there's a lot of BMW history there that, didn't change a whole hell of a lot. And the Brough, so the Brough Superior SS100. If you don't like that bike, you might be dead.
Yeah.
That's a very pretty machine.
And Smith has his Janus with the same little end caps over it.
Fishtail things.
Yeah.
Yep.
Little fishtails on the muffler.
So I'm not interested if it doesn't have electric start and fuel injection.
Oh, there you go. Well, and so then the next one is the of course the ubiquitous. Now, normally the Vincent Black Shadow is at the top of the list, and I got to give him credit because in this one I think the Bruff is a prettier bike than the Black Shadow. The Black Shadow motor looks really cool with all those knuckles sticking out of the top of the valve adjusters.
Does anybody have any information? Like, how did this pea shooter thing start happening? Like
I think it kind of was right there, honestly.
Yeah.
That idea of, there's nothing fancy about it. It's just a fucking muffler.
Right.
So you've got an 1.5-inch pipe going along, and you stick some people call them sausages or balonies, baloney mufflers. But that pea shooter style exhaust really, it's on a lot of stuff. And there's so many bikes that just had that. Well, the idea is that's how you make a sound quieter is you give it a resonant chamber to perform it and put a bunch of baffling in there. Yeah. So it's not a surprise that it looks like that. Like, that's what it is. But again, we're thinking about that Vincent Black Shadow was 55 fucking horsepower, right? And everyone just falls all over themselves. That was 125 mile an hour top speed, 55 Hurspurs, and 1,000 cc's, 998. So really cool. And if you like Hunter S. Thompson, that was, some cool mentions about it in there. So then a bike I've personally sat on, the 1955 Moto Guzzi V8. It is insane. But what's crazy about that V8 is I bet you didn't think that it was only 500 cc's.
Wow.
And so it's an 8-cylinder transverse. So it's a sideways mounted V8. And it is literally only 500 cc's.
What, the pistons are like, what, an inch? Like,
what's that?
The width of the pistons are what, like an inch?
They're tiny. Yeah. I mean, you have 8 60 cc PC, 8 60 cc pistons. So really, really interesting. And that's a fun story. If you ever look into this, it's all about when the rules were written and the rules said that you had to have 500 cc's. You couldn't have any bigger than 500 cc's. Wackos in Europe were saying, well, let's just address this by having 8 fucking cylinders. And what a cool bike that thing is. Moto Guzzi V8, 1955. And I wonder if they're going to do the Honda 6-cylinder. Let's find out and see if they do the Honda 6-cylinder. Okay, 1957 Harley-Davidson Sportster. Wow. What's not to like about this particular bike?
That was one of my favorites.
Yeah, me too, Dan. This is a cool bike. Like, any way you slice it. This is the start of the Sportster. It's the very leading edge of the Sportster motorcycle. And I wish they were all like this.
Yeah, how did they get it so wrong now? That's a beautiful looking bike, man.
My eye looking at it with all the jaundice, the training that my eye has had over these years, the only thing wrong with this bike is the back wheel looks a little skinny. But boy, the rest of it looks fantastic.
What is it, like a shock cover? It covers the whole shock? Like a big...
Yeah, well, it looks like that might have been a shock absorber left over from the FLH parts bin, because that was just the style then. But I really do think it's a handsome motorcycle just on its own. And they did get a lot of shit right then. Now, 1962 Norton Manx. Man, this is a hard bike to not love.
Yeah.
I mean, that bike just sitting there, that's a 500 cc single. It's half as much motor as the Vincent Black Shadow and makes the same horsepower. So how many years later? It wasn't that many, maybe 10 years later, and Norton had managed to get the exact same horsepower out of half as much motor. So half as many cylinders and half as many cc's, and that was the sort of the telling tale about how competition just shoved technology forward. And in 10 years, they went with half as much motor and had way more top speed.
Thanks.
What's that?
Oh, never mind.
Okay. Hey, do you think, was this supposed to have a primary cover, or is that?
It would if it wasn't a race bike.
Okay, that's what I meant. Like, I didn't know. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
And what you can see in that picture what you can see if you go back there is it's very clear that this is a pre-unit motor. So the motor and the transmission are not living in the same box together, right?
Yeah.
So you can see that the motor is putting its power through a through a drivetrain back to the transmission. When Oscar and I were in the Isle of Man, everything, in fact, this motorcycle is on their fucking money. So when you get a coin in the Isle of Man, you might see this particular motorcycle on that coin.
Wow.
They don't call it Manx for nothing.
That's right. You don't call it Manx for nothing. It's not a cat with no tail and too many fingers, you know? Yeah. It's really is. What a great motorcycle and dead sexy. Of course, the 1969 Honda CB750. Do you know what's scary? Is I'm starting to become bored with these.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because I don't love them, and I do love them. In fact, they were launched the same year I was. There's every reason in the world for me to love this motorcycle. I've owned a bunch of them, and I've always found them to be just fantastic as long as they have one cam. And as long as they had one cam, they were amazing. And when they went to two cams, I became extraordinarily uninterested in them. And so it is a product of my life, like my lifespan.
It's tough when. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, keep going, John.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's tough when you have such a super sport bike that has good horsepower and everything, and will rev to the moon, but it won't do a wheelie. It does. It's just like, it's good. It's really good, but it's just not like super anything.
Yeah.
It's great. It's a nice old bike to have, and you can go 70, 80 mile an hour all day long on it, but it's not like super fast off the line. It doesn't scare you enough. And that's kind of the Honda problem that Honda has kind of had, that they make them they build them really nice and everything, and they make very linear power and everything, but it's nothing to scare you like, a Kawasaki Mach.
Right. A lot of people say the CB750 was the first super bike, which is arguable. Would you say it was one of the very first real touring bikes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, very quickly these things got better windjammers on them and bags and stuff. And this was way before even the first Goldwings came out.
Yeah, I agree, John. Prior to 1975, prior to 75, 76, when those first wings showed up, what in the shit was a better touring platform than the CB750? Well, you'd have to look at certain BMWs, right? What was the best BMW in 1970?
Well, this was smoother.
Right.
So what year did they go to DH?
What, an R75/5?
I figured that there wouldn't there have been some R60s running around?
There was an R50, an R60,
Yeah.
an R75 but they were /5s. They had the shorter wheelbase.
Right.
In 1969, I can't think that there would have been a faster production bike. You know what I mean?
I agree.
It probably held. At 67 horsepower,
Yeah.
I don't think anything else would have had any more horsepower than that.
That'd be an interesting one if our listeners would like to comment. So for 1969,
Right.
actual year of 1969, what was available to dealership that year?
In 69, it was only the R60 US, right? That would
That's
be the
what I was
biggest
thinking.
BMW.
Yeah.
I thought you said early 70. The 70, 71, and
Yeah.
70 they came out with the /5s. But
Because I owned I owned an R69 US, and as an R69 US, I'll tell you that the CB750 was a more capable touring bike, And then, so the next one is the Z50A. Holy shit. So this is the monkey. This is the original. If you want to know how old is the concept of a monkey bike, it's 51 years old. Damn. And I love that they write that more than Honda's CB750, the machine that really put the manufacturer on the map was the fucking Mini Z50A, the monkey bike. It's hilarious. These things, if you think you're riding a monkey, if you're riding a modern monkey bike, you are not riding a monkey. You're riding a Grom. The real monkey bike is half the size of a fucking modern monkey. These Z50s are tiny. They are, pick them up and put them under your arm, tiny. So yeah, really, really a tiny bike. But I'm glad it made the list because legit, that is a bike that got a lot of people into motorcycling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now this one's weird. The 1971 MV Agusta 750S. I will agree that this thing is a landmark motorcycle. I really do. I just, there's no doubt about it. This is one of the bikes that I had the little trading cards when I was a kid with all the different bikes. This bike was just like European, exotic, wild race bike that you could buy. But I don't think I knew anybody who even talked about knowing somebody that bought an MV Agusta 750S. I mean, that was just like,
Well, how many were
I had
brought to
uncles
the
and stuff
US?
that had BMWs. There were 583 of them
Right, but in the U.S. or just in total?
in the world.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look at MV Augusta today. They're still relatively
Super rare bike.
super rare bikes. I mean,
Yeah. That is a crazy rare bike. And you only build 583 of them. That's just pure race shit. Okay, here we go. Here's the Z1. And 1972 Kawasaki Z1. What did they call they called this? I think they called it the New York Steak Project. When Kawasaki did it, it was purely about American one-upmanship and beating the balls off of the CB750.
mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
I mean, that's impressive for 1972 right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 82 horsepower. I mean, come on.
But it's only about 5 mile an hour faster.
It is. You're right. It's exactly 5 miles an hour faster than a CB750. The sound they make is far more frightening than a CB750. They were, I'm just going to say it. It was stealing all of Honda's moves and making it better. And, you know, they beat Honda to the dual overhead cam market by about 7 years, you know.
Which is interesting because Honda made multi-cylinder dual overhead cam race bikes in the early 60s. When you look at like the RC 166 and stuff like that.
Yeah, the 166.
So, I mean, it wasn't that they didn't know how to build a dual overhead cam bike. They just chose to build.
And they didn't want to do it for the general public.
It's not as user friendly.
Right, that's true.
Can you imagine running that bike at 130 miles an hour and bias ply tires?
Oh my God. Oh, it's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. So now you see the Paul Smart livery. So this is the Ducati 750 SS from 1974. This is the replica of, you know, the ubiquitous, what would you call that color? Is it like turquoise and silver on the top and turquoise frame and turquoise on the bottom of the fairing, and that's the Paul Smart color livery.
Seafoam.
Yeah, seafoam. It's beautiful, and it's a very strange color combination that instantly it will always make me think of this particular livery. Anytime I see those two colors next to each other, I doesn't matter what they're on, I'm going to think of this. And
Look how thin the frame rails are on that.
yeah. Boy, that was Ducati really saying that we're going to make the bike light, and we're going to make the bike handle, and really just amazing machine. It's 1974, so somebody was actually putting thought into cornering, and look at the fucking brakes on that monster.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, I mean, giant single piston or dual piston caliper front disc. That looks like a single pot. So that looks like a single pot, but just big and very modern looking, and the big rain gutter rims, and just a lot of emphasis on suspension on that 750 SS. And what a gorgeous bike. I mean, that's all right there.
$100,000 laying around, you could probably get one.
Yeah.
No, but you don't have to, because they made Paul Smart replicas later that have fuel injection.
Yeah. Okay.
So I have a question. I mean, they're going in chronicle order. So right now we're hitting the mark of 80.
We're hitting the 80.
So these are the 25 greatest, and this is the for most of us is the era of bikes that we most like. Even though I agree with John, it's not fuel injected, or it still have carburetors.
Yeah,
I was just kidding.
But in general, which bike do you guys think is missing from the before 80s that we already passed? Because there's a bunch of really good bikes.
Well, there's all the 2-strokes. I mean, where's all the 2-strokes?
Right.
That's right.
I didn't want to say it, but
And that's the trouble when you can only pick 25. And
25, you're right.
we've all been doing this for a long
Well,
time.
they put the monkey. I mean, it's not.
Right.
Yeah, but they put the
My Kawasaki would have been an H2 over a Z1. I mean, that was a more groundbreaking bike. I mean, that was a more terrifying bike.
And the Kawasaki H3 or Mach 3 came out in 68, and it was already, I think, just as fast as the CB750 even before it came out. So
here's the thing. If you take this and turn it into the 50 best bikes, then we can squeeze those bikes in there.
Right. I did get to the end of the list, and I was initially thinking, oh, this is the top 100 motorcycles. I got to the end of the list saying, okay, this is pretty good so far. Wait, that's it?
That's it. And I think
and maybe they did the most iconic from their era, not just the best overall. Maybe just the more. I mean, like the monkey is well known. I mean, it's not like it's not a good bike. It's just.
Well, and at the beginning, they do say it's involving, form and function. It's not about performance. It's not about practicality or how rare it is. It's just, in their opinion, what are the
function? Doesn't function kind of give a connotation of performance?
Yeah.
The function equals performance.
Do you know what's really funny is because I have been reading motorcycle magazines and books my entire life, and I gotta say, anytime anybody takes a shot at this, anytime somebody's like the top 10 bikes in the world, yeah, we know what they're gonna do. They're gonna have a Super Cub, and they're gonna have a CB750, and they're gonna have a CB350. We know what they're gonna do. But this one, I have to say, I can see that they've taken a little bit of a different angle, and for having only 25 bikes, I do appreciate the stuff that they've done. Like, I think going after the Bruff Superior in that generation, in that era, I think that was bold because so many people just go Vincent Black Shadow, and that's it, and you'll never hear anything else. I think that their take on this is a little bit more well reasoned, or at least not just hitting the high spots. I think for 25 they've done a pretty interesting list.
But at least at this point, you wouldn't take any of them out, and you wouldn't think that this is slanted. So it is covering.
There's some that I would maybe add, like the AJS Porcupine.
Yep, exactly.
That was a pretty sweet bike.
I think you could do that. I think changing this list from 25 to 50, and you could really cover a really, really good range of stuff and give everybody a little bit of respect without going to the ridiculous, making the list boring and having 100 bikes.
Right.
So I do think 25 is a hard number to hit, but this is
over 100 years.
What's that?
Over 100 years?
Over 100 years. No shit. That's really tight. I mean, you think about how many bikes are available. I could do 50 good bikes in 1989,
But they nailed this. This is a very, this bike changed everything right here.
Well, go back, Steve, because I do want to talk about this. This is a weird bike. So the R80 GS, this is the beginning. It's the beginning of the Galanda Sport, right? So, it really is an interesting thing because this is what started every GS that ever happened after it, man.
And there's still around the world guys riding this bike right now with 290,000 miles on it. And
our buddy Johnny Sheff from Chicago, who has Motorworks in Chicago, look him up, Johnny Sheff. Johnny Sheff has got one of these that he's done the Baja on. Not 50 years, not in 1980, like a couple of years ago, right? So the fact that dudes are still out there beating this bike, this actual 1980 machine, to death is really, it is important. And I give them credit because this is the first time where a manufacturer said, we're going to make a bike that is equally at home on the dirt as it is on the street, and not with a 250 motor. Because sure, all the Honda SLs and everything that was ever called a scrambler was designed to be equally at home on the street. But this one, a big fucking 800, well, nobody was doing an 800 in 1980 that was meant to be, you can go touring across the country or you can go play in the dirt.
Yeah, you're not going to want to ride an old XL 350 around the world.
That's right. That's exactly right. And even if you think of some of those Triumph desert sleds and stuff, those T100s, well, those were 500cc singles, you know? That wasn't a bike you'd want to ride on the freeway at 80 miles an hour. And I think this is an excellent example of a motorcycle that changed the whole utility of motorcycles. It was, you could have one bike that did multiple jobs. So super cool.
And it was so well thought out for traveling around the world. That was why the single swing arm and everything. You didn't do anything. You could just jack the bike up, take your wheel off, change tires, like
and high mufflers. Keep them out of the way and don't make them bounce off of rocks. You know.
Yeah,
it's a really cool bike, and I always liked those. I thought they were super cool, and the fact you could take the back wheel off without removing the swing arms and shocks and stuff was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
A quick question. I don't know. I have no idea the answer.
Yeah.
But like the Perry Ducar, when were the first motorcycle? I mean, were they running out? Like, when did they start running motorcycles in that?
I will consult the internet. I'll give you the answers shortly. Yeah.
Look at it.
I'm assuming they didn't do it in the 1920s, 30. You know, I don't know how far back that would have went.
Yeah, I don't know. That also might be that it's just in line with what was the first year they ran a Perry Ducar, you know?
Right.
So now we're getting into the plastic era of covering the bike and the frame and everything else.
Yeah, but dude, you're almost my age. When this thing came out, it was straight boner. I mean, like you saw these
my God.
And it was like, it blew my mind. I was like, I don't care what I do in life. I have to have this.
Yeah. And that really is, and no fooling, you know, when this bike came out, I was exactly 16 years old. So I was 16 years old when this bike came out. And if you would have said that this was nuclear powered, you couldn't have blown us away anymore. Yeah. This thing, when it hit, I was a major Cycle World fan. I had all these, you know, my wall locker in high school was just covered in motorcycle pictures. And when this bike came out, it was so far ahead of any of the other early 80s bikes, including like the GPZ stuff, like all the Kawasaki GPZs.
I don't know about that. That was what I was thinking. I'm like, didn't the Ninja come out in '84?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
GPZ 900.
But it wasn't. It didn't look like a fucking straight race bike. Like this thing, I saw it. I'm like, oh my God, there's a race bike in Tinker's.
The GPZs were all out and they were all wonderful. And hell, half of them had turbos for fuck's sake, you know?
Yeah.
But when this thing came out, this was like, oh, Jesus Christ, they're selling an actual track bike to people.
And it sounded like it. Something about that 4-in-1. It had a very unique sound to it.
This was a racetrack bike that had shitty brakes. Like it had made for civilians brakes. It had made for civilian suspension, but those are the only two things you needed to change. And then you had the same bike they were running on the racetrack.
Yeah.
And I remember when these things hit, I was just like, they probably shouldn't sell this to people. Mm-hmm. And it changed the game because all of a sudden every company then said, okay, we need to have a race bike that we sell to humans.
Well, and this was 1985, and it looks almost. I mean, the equation is still at play when it comes to a sport bike.
It absolutely is.
And the thing is, like back in I loved them, but like I started riding in about 87, 88, and I'd go to Tinkers Creek Park down here in the thing, and on Saturday mornings there'd be 50 to 60 sport bikes. And it was pretty amazing that this bike came out and you'd see these guys a little bit older, you know, they're probably in their mid 20s or 30s, and they'd get these bikes and come down to the park. And within 2 weeks, all the fairings would be cracked and scratched because they didn't know how to ride. Like it was a game changer bike. I mean, it really had power and stuff. And, you know, guys that just got them, they came from their 550L, you know, that had 28 horsepower or something. They jump on this thing. And sure enough, a few weeks later, man, they're back with an arm sling and their bike's all fucked up. And
Tommy Bishahal back in high school, he was the guy who went out and bought the first Ninja. Nobody ever heard of a Ninja, you know, and they're like, wow. And he was known for just riding a wheelie for miles, you know. He would just be like, whoop, up on one wheel, and eventually it caught up with him. He came up over a hill and was trying to go around the bend and dumped it and then bounced along through the trees and stuff and almost died. He has his one leg is solid from the hip all the way to the ankle and stuff like that. But he was a badass for a while.
To go back to 1979, year of our Lord 1979, that was the very first year for the Paris Dakar. In the very first year of the Paris Dakar, it was won by a Yamaha motorcycle being ridden by Cyril Neveu. So Cyril Neveu from Orleans, France, or Orleans, France, if you're American, he did win the Dakar 5 times. He won it in 79, 80, 82, 86, and 87.
Wow.
And he was the very first competitor to win the Dakar rally in the motorcycle category in 1979.
What would that have been? An XT500 or something like that?
You know what? I gotta bet you, dude. I gotta believe if we dig down into this, it had to be. So I'll continue drilling into this, and we'll proceed on with the list. All right.
The RC30.
So yeah, here we go. Now, how about the ushering in of V4s? So if you're going to start with V4s, and the bike that started it all for V4s, Interceptors et al. Because remember, Interceptors started, I think, in 1983, right, John?
You got me, yes, but that sounds right.
Yeah, I think 83 or 84 was the first year for the Interceptors, but this was the high water mark for that RC30. And if you want to go back and watch racing, go back and watch vintage racing and watch these RC30s on the track. Damn. I mean, the sound these things made, gear driven cams, 750 cc's. I've owned these Interceptors. I've owned, this bike's civilian, this is the RC, this is the race bike, and this is civilian. You can buy it. This is not the track bike, but obviously the touring version of this was called the VFR. And so the sport version is the RC30, and it's the VFR 750R. And that's what you're looking at here.
Do you remember at Mid Ohio 2 years ago when the group of Japanese guys brought the bikes in? They had one.
Yes,
it was like 32,000 or somewhere around there. It was a lot of money, man.
Just crazy cool.
Yeah,
just very neat, very cool bike, and again, ridiculous power, but also, in my opinion, very sexy.
Yep.
I loved the way the single-sided swing arm looked on these bikes, even though it had that giant tire on it, that giant wheel. And then I also like the way the tail section looked on these bikes.
Mm-hmm. I've been looking at a lot of I've been looking at Craigslist a lot right now and everything, and the double round headlights, on these bikes in this era, I just love that.
Me too. I think it's very distinctive. I think it's and that's the GSXR as well. I think the double round headlights, and I've had a couple of FZRs as well that had the double round headlights.
Gammas or Genesis, they make Yamaha Genesis.
Yeah, the Genesis were all the 5-valve motors. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, this next bike, I've owned 7 of them, and they're my favorite bike in the world.
What you're saying is it may have deserved a place on the list.
Yeah. Oh,
and I agree.
Look at that bitch, dude. I still get a boner looking at these things, man.
That's a pretty bike.
The CBR 900 RR, the first time ever we had an RR that I even as a young person, I was in the Army when these things came out. And when the RRs hit, I was like, that's one too many R's. It's either an R or it isn't an R. And now we have 3 R's.
The interesting part about this bike, and I don't know how they did it, because obviously they made it, and it handled great and everything, but it has a 4-foot balance point for wheelies. Like, you can be kind of up, you can be 12. Like, it's insane on where it will balance on a wheelie. And it just sits there. It's nuts, man.
John, to answer your question, the bike that won the Dakar was the XT500 with a chunky big gas tank on it and very little else. I mean, it looked like a stock bike with just a 9-gallon tank on it.
Huh.
Yeah. And I bet you the bike was probably stock with a 9-gallon tank on it. So
9-gallon tank.
It's a monster tank like we have in our KLRs. Yeah. And their pit crew appears to be in a Unimog. So go figure. The Dakar was different back then. I
know a crazy guy who's looking at a Unimog right now.
Oh, really?
Grumpy sewer guy.
Oh, God, of course he is.
See, I never knew this, and this is pretty cool. So if you read here, the designer, he designed this bike, instead of it being for a racetrack, he designed it for the road. So that's why it was so comfortable and still fast, handled great, but more for streets. That's cool.
I've only owned one of these, and honestly, I will be the first to tell you it was a much later version of this, and I did sell it rather quickly, only because I just knew that it was going to cost me my license.
Yeah.
There's no way that I could keep that bike. And if you look at that bike in 1992, it already had upside down forks.
Right.
It had everything. I mean, it was as cutting edge, and I don't think the new ones are any faster. I think the only difference between this one and the new version of this is just going to be traction control and ABS.
And they were durable. You could crash them about 37 times before something actually broke. It was.
Well, I think they should have just made the Starboys edition where all the bodywork was just Tupperware.
Yeah,
and it literally was just flexible.
I like all the perforations. Are those breakaway points in the plastic?
Yeah. That's where they pre-drilled the zip ties. They did.
They pre-drilled the zip ties.
That's why when it cracks, you just run it through the loops and you.
Right. So it would break at the point where it was easiest to repair.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Just make it out of unbreakable comb.
Yes, exactly. Make the whole thing out of traffic cone.
That's a good bike though. And then like all the way up to what 98 or 99 is when they went and they had the headlights more rounded, like not rounded but more different.
Yeah, they made them teardrop shaped.
Yep.
I didn't like those.
I did. I tore one down to the frame and rebuilt it. I'll try to find a picture later. And I did like that one. It was the red, black, and white one.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was so good. Anyways, all right.
Now the Fireblade's a great bike, man. Super cool bike.
And here you go.
And then here I am. Yeah, there we are again. And
I never knew anybody that ever owned one of these.
No, nobody did, because this was the oval piston. So the NR 750, and I'm gonna be different than everybody else in the world here. I think this is a beautiful motorcycle, in so much as I think that a Ferrari Testarossa is a beautiful car. It's unnecessary, and it just speaks to a certain time. And then it's done. Like if you want to just pretend, you want to say like, I want to tell the world that it's 1992 and I'm filming a movie, you would have this bike in the background, or you'd have a Testarossa in the background.
Right.
And it's the extras, the cladding on the side. But what was crazy was this was a cheating bike. This bike was literally 32 valves, right?
32 valves.
32 valves, right. So it's 8 valves per cylinder, right? And it had oval pistons. Was this cheater way of saying it's not 2 pistons, it's one big oval piston. And so it was all about beating the rule book. And it was all about GP racing and beating the rules and building a motor that was asymmetrical or atypical, I guess. Mm-hmm. And that was this deal. And the Tamburini designed it. So, Tamburini is the guy who did the Ducati 916s and the Super Sports and stuff. So Tamburini's a genius when it comes to design. But this bike was really, really great. But here's where it fails. Oval pistons. There was no longevity. It was meant to be a race bike. Done. Period. Yeah. There's nothing on that bike that is meant to be a street bike. It is a race bike.
Strictly for homologation.
Turn signals are for homologation only. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what it is. And if you were lucky enough to buy one of these that was a homologation, they have to build enough bikes to sell so that they can go racing with them. It had everything. It had fuel injection, but mostly it had oval pistons. And realistically, man, that's just kooky. When you think about 8 valves, because the oval pistons, just don't think of them as one big oval piston. Think of it as 2 pistons with 1 conrod. Mm-hmm. And that's really what it was.
Gotcha.
Crazy design, though. If you ever get a chance to do a Google search and look at the blow up of the engine, like a cutaway drawing of the motor, to see the way that they did that to get that volumetric efficiency of cheater 750cc motor.
And it's cool because they intended to make a V8, but the rules said you can't have a V8. It's kind of like the old Moto Guzzi. It's like, okay, we have a CC limit. How do we flow more air? Well, that's more valves with more cylinders.
You're right, Nick. That's all they did was they ground out the portion between the circles. Mm-hmm. So if you take a motor, a V8 motor, and you look at those 8 slugs, and you just go, okay, well, just cut them. So instead of being round holes, they're big fucking ovals. And so instead of 8 slugs, they had 4 slots. and then they just made the pistons shaped funny. But that'd be a fun ashtray to have on your desk. It'd be like an old oval piston just upside down to put stuff in, or a cup holder in your car.
No, I was
Is it
looking
two
at the,
connecting rods per piston?
You know, I believe so. I would have to look, but I think I can't recall, and I will look to see real quick. But as you know, again, this was just boner fuel, because once you realize that there was no chance that was ever going to become a production motor idea. But yeah, they.
Yeah, no, I was looking at some pictures of the front because it looks odd sideways. And it definitely, before you said the comment of the Ducati side of the history of it, it definitely does give you the front, like the headlights. It does give you the vibe of the later Ducatis for sure.
Yeah, if you look at that is hilarious.
Yeah, there you go.
Because calling that a 4-cylinder motor is just like from the cheating department. Like, there is no way you can look at that and say that's a 4-cylinder motor. You're like, okay, that's not a 4-cylinder motor. That's an 8 and maybe a 12-cylinder motor.
Crazy.
Because the way that motor's configured, that is hilarious. But yeah, the cutaway, I love the cutaway on that. I could look at that cutaway picture for hours.
Jeez.
It's so cool.
Look at the head.
Yeah, that cylinder head.
The head is a joke. The head is hilarious. Yeah. Yeah, that head's outrageous.
2 cylinders with 16 valves.
16 valves. And that head is just, I love that head is just for 2 pistons.
Yep.
That head looks like it's for 4 cylinders, you know?
Yeah.
So it's very funny. But again, any color you want as long as it's red, you know?
Look at that piston, man.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. I would love to have one of those pistons on the dashboard of my truck. Just as an object of art. Yeah.
Yeah. That would
so
be
cool.
interesting. All right.
So yeah, back to where are we at right now?
We're
at 1995.
1992.
Oh, then this
92.
The monstrosity that.
Yeah.
I like it. It's cool.
It's as exotic as you could get.
Honestly, I'm not sure why this is on the list.
So realistically, every single person that has ever listened to the Motorcycles and Misfits podcast, and every single person that has ever participated in the Motorcycles and Misfits podcast, you have to name your up the butt bike. If you're being interviewed by them, you have to say what your up the butt bike is. And 99.1% of the people have said that it was the Britain V1000. Now, I do not agree. This is not my up the butt bike. I respect what he did, and I have listened to every interview he's done, and I totally dig the fact that he did this like without a wind tunnel. And I can totally forgive the pink and blue color dynamic. I think that's cool. I love the crazy wonky spaghetti looking exhausts. I think those are slick. I have no problem with many things on this V1000 motorcycle, but I'm not going as far as to say that it's like literally my up the ass bike. Like this would be the bike I would embrace that with. It's just crazy. I dig it. I love the story of the man. I totally dig it. However, and it's a tragedy, died at 45 years old. It's a terrible, terrible thing. But when I look at this, I don't see myself riding this. This looks like you stole it from the set of Hello Kitty's Next Adventure.
But I want to see this documentary now. I didn't know this existed.
Yeah, I watched the documentary, One Man's Dream. Yeah. It's really cool and it's great and I dig it, but it's not a motorcycle that I would be like, oh, I totally want to ride that around. I don't. Like there's no part of it that to me is like I want to ride this bike a lot. And
did it win?
What's that?
Did it win? Winning races in Daytona, all over Europe and Australia. Yeah, it won.
Yeah,
it won. I mean, it was a really. It's a very interesting exercise, and it did set the world on its ass because this guy he built this thing in his fucking garage. I mean,
but
this is a motorcycle genius.
But there was no ass that was happy to ride this thing. Look at that.
Yeah, I know. I like that. Everything is designed with the rider being the last concern.
Right.
Yeah.
Figure it out, guys. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there it is.
Most beautiful bike ever made.
So there we go. I mean, 1994 Ducati 916. Yeah, it's hard to argue with this. Even and the crazy thing about it is it's become a very affordable bike.
Christ, you are. Who died?
That's one of those bikes that the 94 Ducati 916 Tamburini, again, back in the workshop. This is a beautiful machine. This is an
NSR 750 that you could actually own.
Yeah.
True that. Absolutely. And I've had a couple of super sports. I just, this was the sexier version of the 750 SS. It always looked ahead of its time. There's nothing about this bike that looks like it's,
Well,
26 years old.
Have you ever ridden one of these?
Yeah.
My buddy Mark had one back in the day. Back when I was svelte and could fit on it, my gut wouldn't be part of the gas tank and stuff.
Well, that has that gas tank that nobody can ride.
Right. Well, you can when you're 19 and 22 and stuff like that. But this bike is the only bike, and I wanted one so bad, but they were still like 25 grand back then, whatever. But I got to ride it, and it literally fell into corner. Like, I can't explain it. Like, it would just turn on its own. Like, the gnarliest corner that most bikes, you're like, okay, push, okay, push. Oh, I'm gonna make it away. It was like taking a turn at like 5. Like, it just was in there, man. It was beautiful, unbelievable.
I had heard everybody talking about the incredible chassis, the incredible frame, and there was no better frame and no better chassis on any motorcycle in the world. And at the time, I was riding inline fours, so I really wasn't ready for the grunt of a V-twin, or in this case, a 90-degree twin. And the first time I rode one of these, I was like, oh, torque, holy shit, that's fun. I've never experienced torque in a sport bike before because, sport bikes were always about high revs. And so the first time I experienced torque in a sport bike was in this bike's baby brother of the Monster, right? And then I rode this thing and I was like, damn, this is really going to get me in trouble. And I had just read the Hunter S. Thompson piece called The Song of the Sausage Creature, right? And it's all about this. And if you read The Song of the Sausage Creature, it's really great. I mean, I love it. And this bike, when I rode it, for me, it was kind of a thing because I liked Hunter S. Thompson and I liked Ducatis. And I rode the bike and I was expecting the frame to be like a razor blade. I was expecting it to be like cut from diamonds and it would have no flex whatsoever. And I was very surprised to find out that the frame on this bike was actually very flexible. And it turns out that was designed in. So they had thought about it, and rather than making the frame perfectly rigid, they had given the frame enough body to make it just dive into corners. And son of a bitch, they're right, it did. And it was a much better bike than I'll ever be a rider.
They just did that to the CRF 300.
Oh, yeah?
When they came out with it, they took rigidity out of the frame because it was too rigid.
I got to say, the Ducati 916, again, always out of my price point for an actual bike I would ride on the track or ride anywhere aggressively, but just an amazing motorcycle.
This is a pretty cool line right here. Look at this.
And it's a historical vehicle.
Yep. Yeah, at this point, it really is. Right.
What's interesting is at the bottom it says, without a doubt, the most important motorcycle, both financially and culturally, that Ducati has ever created. And I would argue no, because the Monster saved that company from going out of business.
Yeah.
And this motorcycle cost them a lot of money to build, and the Monster paid the freight for this motorcycle.
But I'll say this too. So this is 94, right?
And
in about what, 2 or 3 years, every motorcycle started to have undertail exhaust.
And the first time you saw this bike from the back, the first time you saw the back of this bike, you were having a crisis in your pants, right? Yeah. Because the front of the bike was one thing, but the back of the bike was like, oh, you broke all the rules.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, this 1994 design went through several years of Ducatis that look similar to this, like 998 and 750. I mean, it just kept going because it's pretty solid. I love that fucking design.
The one that I rode, you remember in the late 80s, so many motorcycles had plastic covers hiding where the passenger would sit?
Yeah.
And they'd have a plastic cover that had like a couple of screws on it that would always break. And like my Interceptor, my 87 Interceptor had a plastic cover that would hide where the passenger was sitting for no reason. It doesn't make it any more aerodynamic. It's behind your back, It was just a dumb thing that made your bike look sportier.
It looked like race plastics instead of, street plastic.
And so this bike, I remembered this bike because this bike, the vinyl on the passenger seat was actually the body color. So the driver's seat was black, but the passenger seat was red to fool you into thinking it wasn't there. And I noticed that when I got on the bike the first time, I was like, oh, well, that's better than putting a cheesy plastic cover on it. Because if you do put a passenger on the back of my Interceptor, you'd have to take the plastic cover off with a screwdriver and then hand it to your passenger and say, oh, now hold on to this. we're going to go ride a motorcycle, but I need you to hold this cover for the back of this motorcycle seat.
Just to backtrack a little bit, I did find my album, so I can show you that I wasn't kidding. So here's some of my 900 RRs I had.
God.
Oh yeah.
So that was the 900. That was my ZX7. That was my GSXR 750. Hold on, let me go this way.
Oh, you really were a fucking star boy, weren't you?
Wow.
Hold on, wait. And then this is my baby, though. This is the one I took down to the frame and rebuilt. I love this fucking bike. This every fucking nut.
Oh yeah.
And I could fucking wheelie this thing on 271 fucking all day long, talking on a cell phone and eating a snack at the same time. Now I'm, whatever. But anyways, yeah, that was my jam. And then look, I even got into Street Fighters back in the day when nobody was fucking doing Street Fighters and stuff. This little Gixxer 750.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, look at that Gixxer. Oh, that's adorable. That's great.
Look at these bums. So there's Dreadlock me. This dude's a MAGA. I think he's arrested. I think he was at the Capitol.
Yeah.
He's a cop and he owns Jack Prince now. Hey, all right.
Who's the guy with the dreadlocks?
Me. That's a
I
class.
didn't know you were a natural blonde.
Yeah, man. That's a classy motherfucker right there. What are you talking about? All right. Anyway, sorry. I didn't want to fucking show that off.
Dude, fucking rider for life, dude.
Hey, man. We were having fun.
You guys are having a blast.
That's right.
You were living to ride.
Uh-huh.
All right. So what's next on the list?
All right. Oh, boy. I can't imagine where they're going to be next, man. Oh, yeah. There you are. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I agree.
That was a game changer. When this came out, that was I remember my Murad, who now is a freedom fighter and probably in jail.
Yep.
He got one of the first R1s, and I remember him doing 180 miles an hour, and I was like, Jesus Christ, is that a fast bike?
Yeah, and if you remember on this bike, what changed everything, because there were plenty of leader class bikes before this bike, but they changed the transmission orientation on this thing. They did mass centralization for the first time, and they moved the gearbox, right? And the whole idea was that you could put your transmission somewhere other than the very bottom of the motor. And you could then have the motor and the transmission occupying a better mass centralization, which gave this bike an incredible advantage in racing because you no longer had to have your weight sitting so high in the frame. And when these things hit the track, they were untouchable.
And they still are. 2 years ago, I went to Pennsylvania for the new Moto America races.
Yeah.
And one of the guys that was second in points in the 1,000 cc class.
Yeah.
His trailer burned down at like VIR or something.
Right.
And like, I mean, not at the racetrack, but when they were leaving VIR to come to Pennsylvania to race, their trailer brakes fucked up or something. The whole thing burned down. He was able to get to a Yamaha dealer.
Yeah.
The day before, pick up an R1. He removed the mirrors. They put on, because they had their sponsors sent him an exhaust pipe, and then they put a new programmer in for the fuel injection, and he took second place on a stock R1.
I don't think that this 22-year-old motorcycle or 23-year-old motorcycle, I don't think the modern ones today are any better than this one. I mean, I've owned R1s. I have ridden them. This particular bike, the R1, is legendary, and I think we're going to have to get used to the fact that this bike is 23 years old.
Right.
And the fact that it's a 23-year-old motorcycle means that it has earned its place in history, and it's as significant as that Kawasaki Z1. It changed road racing, and it also there's this whole thing. It's like, okay, if you want to have a bad boy fast bike on the street, yeah, certain people are we're going to have a Hayabusa. Just get a Hayabusa. Get a Hayabusa with a stretched swing arm. You're fine. But this is actually a bike that can do everything.
Yep.
It really is. And I think that in 10 years from now, that is going to be the cool hip bike to have. And again, it's only fucking 2 years away from having historical plates.
And here's arguably, though, like obviously, like everybody loved the R1. Yeah. But I think almost just as important, and basically the same bike,
right?
But I think sold more was the FZ1.
Well, of course the FZ1, because that was one that you could actually enjoy. But more importantly, like it was one of the first like standard kind of / touring / hey, I'm 40 and I don't want to be an idiot bike. That but it had power though. You know what I mean? Like it handled like a fucking race bike, but it was still upright.
Like a Bandit.
Yeah.
Well, and let's see what's next on the list. I mean,
I don't know about this.
Yeah, so I've been through a few share of these. You know, back in the old supersonic days, we did a lot with Aprilia, and we did. These bikes came out of the factory when we were able to buy these bikes. We weren't able to buy them with a lighting kit. So you see this bike. This is the Aprilia RS250. This is a two-stroker that is meant just for entry-level 250 class GP road racing. That's all it is. You know, Honda had their I believe Honda's flipped the S and the R around. Those are the SR250 versus the Aprilia's RS250. But so in the mid 90s, these were the bikes that you bought if you wanted to go out and go and enter your GP racing, right? And of course, Aprilia did the 50cc version of this as well. So they did the 50cc, and they were sold. You could buy them through your Aprilia dealers here in the United States, but you couldn't buy them with a lighting rig because they weren't DOT approved. They were two strokes, right? And you could buy the lighting rig, and I remember the lighting rig was $1,300, and $1,300 is offensive for what is basically a different stator and a different flywheel and the light bulbs and shit that you see there. $1,300 to make your track legal bike into a street legal bike. But of course, your title, your MCO didn't say that it was street legal. These things were a blast, and I got to ride these quite a bit. And the even the RS50, which is hilarious, little 50cc, it's still a blast to ride. But this 250 it's a beast, and it's every bit as good as the Hondas, and actually a little bit better. The two-stroke twin GP road racing bike, probably in 1998. I don't know if it had ever gotten better than this bike. So
were they one of the first to start using like the obtuse looking
the gull wing arm? So the gull wing arm, that was really about where your chain output was, and the idea was having your chain running on its own back to the rear sprocket, as opposed to trapping the swing arm within it, meant that you could do wheel changes and tire changes very, very easily because the chain didn't trap the swing arm in between the top and the bottom run of the chain. So a gull wing swing arm gave the chain the ability to run under it. So a tire change on the back of the bike was very quick.
Cool.
Truly racetrack shit right there.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Jesus Christ, John. It puts this taking us back to the Portland 1 show, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I didn't realize that's a 2000 though.
Yeah, well, this was that resurgence. That was that whole getting back on the track thing. That was its return.
That looks
I'm looking
like
at some of the bikes in the back.
Yeah, right.
In this picture too.
You can see the Super Glide on the
boat tail.
The boat tail, yeah. And then there's the Paul Smart Ducati behind it. And there's a Moto Guzzi V50 Monza behind it over there, the red one. And then there's a Daytona. I think that's a Yamaha Daytona, or is that a Kawasaki H? The white bike to the left of it behind it. Anyway, podcast listeners don't care. I think that's a 3-cylinder.
Yeah.
We've carefully designed these air filters. Like they're like no other air filters that have ever been designed.
I think you can only buy those by the dozen. I think K&N will only sell you those a dozen at a time. They're designed to be kicked off with your foot.
And for podcast listeners that can't see them, they're literally like a soda can.
This is the 2000 Harley-Davidson XR750 flat tracker. No brakes on the front or the back at all. There's just no brakes on this motorcycle whatsoever. It is truly a real competition flat tracker. It's very funny that they give it a rating as being like an important motorcycle, top 25 motorcycles, because this isn't buyable. You can't purchase this. It's just track fodder. There's nothing about this at all that you could purchase or have or anything. And honestly, I feel like this is where this article fucks up, because honestly, an XR750, it could have been any XR750. They raced forever. I think in the article it says 50 years, right?
Right.
So, Jay Springsteen, Scott Parker, Joe Kopp, Jared Meese, and Brad Baker, not shitting you, that XR750 I don't think it needs to be on the list because it's not a bike you can buy and they didn't need to put a year on it. They could have put like any one of years on it. NSR 500. So here we are again.
So talk amongst yourself. Be right back.
Oh, you're going to be in your bunk, huh?
Be right back.
He's going to go rub one out real quick.
Got to get those white blood cells up.
That's exactly right. I can absolutely tell you that the NSR 500 is a racing. It's a race bike. Period. That's it. It's just like the flat tracker we just saw. It's just a race bike. It was the bike that you graduated to after you'd done 50cc GP, after you'd done 250 GP. Then, of course, what your team would be invested in you enough to like have a helicopter standing by in case you got hurt, and they'd put you on the 500cc. And that's what this is.
Was two-stroke. The NSR was a two-stroke 3-cylinder V, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and the bonkers, but again, that was the idea, right? And this was that era. Now, what's hilarious is this, of course, for the example in the timeline, they call this a 2001, right? So they call it a 2001 NSR 500. And that probably is the high water mark, right? But these bikes didn't change a whole hell of a lot between the mid 80s and 2001. It was really the only thing that changed on these was the brakes and the suspension, because the drivetrain didn't change a whole hell of a lot. And
actually, it says in the article, even though they called it a 2001, the actual picture is of 1997.
Yeah, that's a mid 70s Repsol. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, if you're going to put this kind of bike on the list, then where's the TZ 750?
Thank you, John.
The Yamaha.
A little love for our Dean Middleton and our Yamaha brothers, all of the TZs. Where the fuck are they? Because they were every bit as important. That's another strong recommendation for the Isle of Man. If you love GP road racing and you're a fan of that and you grew up with it, go to the Isle of Man, because you'll be like, I didn't know they built that many TZs. And they're in people's gardens, and you're like, Jesus Christ, that's a 2-stroke 750.
You mean they grow them?
Yeah, they grow them. They grow them there. They already come in Dunlop livery. They're all yellow and black, right? So up to the two. Now here's the RC211V. Yeah, all right, fair enough. GP road racing is going to 4-stroke. Well, how are we going to go to 4-stroke? Well, let's give you a 1,000cc limit, and let's tell you that GP is now going to be 4 strokes. We're not going to have polluting 2 strokes anymore. And Honda showed up and literally said, okay, that was easy. Next.
Wow. V5.
This bike is madness. This is as much power as you can put into, 21 inches of metal. I don't think that anything, 211V, because it was 211 horsepower. And that's wild. And 4-stroke, just super cool, man. If you ever thought you liked Nicky Hayden, Valentino Rossi, all the guys were killing each other on these bikes. And it was just because they finally had a bike that wasn't a 2-stroke. It was completely controllable. It wasn't peaky and weird. It was a bike that they could use like a fucking scalpel. And it was insane. And I like where they say there was talk of a 5-cylinder RC211V road bike. No, there wasn't. Are you kidding me? That shit was pure angel tears. I mean, that's a race bike.
If you were watching these guys race back then, when the 4-strokes came in, all their racing styles completely changed.
Yes.
And
they started backing them in.
Yeah, well, not only that, but so they would be like, in the 2-stroke days, it was all about the straightaway and then trying to muster through like the turns the best you can, but all the shit happened on the straightaways.
That's right.
It was so controllable that they started to like all the defensive riding and all the aggressive riding and like figuring out how to outbrake and then pass in turns and stuff really started to. I mean, it was always there, obviously, but like they really, like you said, it's a scalpel tool now.
It was amazing. I loved watching the racing when this bike came in, when this bike showed up. It made the 2-strokes look quaint. And it really was, this thing was fierce.
Yeah, and the styling, it's 15 years old at this point, and it could have came out yesterday. I mean, like,
it looks like the future right now. I mean, it looks like the future 20 years ago. It's a fucking brilliant bike. And again, it changed the whole world of road racing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Earns its place. Wow. Okay, here we go.
Jeez.
So 2015.
See, what's with all the road bikes? I mean, like, why don't they have like a WR 426?
And you know what? You're absolutely right, Steve. And I think that this thing is all about, it's literally street or road racing motorcycles. They have not given one hint of, they haven't given anything
other than the GS,
you know?
But I mean, like a WR 426 was a game changing.
Yes, engine. It was. Absolutely. And I think if this would have been a 50 bike list, that probably would have made it, because you're right. That big 4-stroke, when that big Yamaha showed up, that 426 showed up and it changed everything. That was.
Do you think that so they're saying motorcycle? Most people associate a motorcycle with road, and it would be like dirt bike or greatest dirt bike.
Yeah, they haven't really. I mean, the GS is as close as they get to a dirt bike in this thing.
Yeah,
and
it's still a road bike generally.
But not for nothing. I mean, I can respect where they're coming from, and I'm not going to tear their ass out, because every bike they've named so far, and I think the Harley Flat Tracker is probably, they should have actually put that in the 1976 category,
right,
or the 1970 category, because that's when the XRs started being a flat track thing. They should have put it different in the stacking order. I think that the new Kawasaki Ninja H2R, although having the dumbest name, I know what they were doing. I know why they called it an H2R, but fuck you, it's not an H2. There's nothing about it that's an H2. It doesn't have 3 cylinders. It's not a 2-stroke. It's not an H2. Nothing about this bike is anything other than a 4-cylinder Ninja.
But look at this. So this is 2015, and this is 2006.
Right.
This is so much sexier than this fucking thing.
Well, because the 2015 Ninja H2R has a front styling treatment that was done by the Matrix graphic design department.
Right.
Dread.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is ridiculous, and it's kooky, and it's nuts. But
I mean, are we completely, I don't know this. I'm just asking. Did they take it to a wind tunnel, and the wind tunnel told them they needed this shit, or is this?
I don't know. I think they watched too many Fast and the Furious movies.
Well, this does have the delta. If you look up on the top, what looks like it could be a mirror. Those are just
wings,
P-tards or whatever. I forget what you call it.
Spoiler.
Yeah.
On the. Whatever.
I have gotten to ride these bikes, not the R, of course, because nobody I know has that kind of money, but I've gotten to ride the regular H2. And what I will say is it is fantastic. The supercharger is magnificent, but keep in mind that the supercharger is done to give you 1,300 cc's of power out of a 1,000 cc motor, you know? And that's what it is. The supercharger keeps this machine light, and it keeps it efficient, and it keeps it within the numbers for EPA. So for a 999 machine, a 1,000 cc machine, this thing bats way above its weight. It punches way over its class because of that supercharger. And I think that this is an exercise in, hey, look, we can put a supercharger on a 450, give it the power of a 1,000, but the weight of a 350, And I think this was really, obviously this is the race model, 310 horsepower. You're not going to get that out of the street model. But the bike that I rode was remarkably powerful. It was amazing. And it still got its ass kicked by a Zero SR.
I was just going to ask you, I remember watching a video from some black dude, from Cleveland, that has a review channel.
His name is Ibrahim.
Yeah,
and his channel is called 650IB, and he's a super sweet human being. I would give love to him at all times, because he's got the Doug DeMuro videos for cars.
Yeah.
So he's like the Doug DeMuro for cars, but he does it for motorcycles. And he's built himself an amazing collection of motorcycles. But he's just a very cool guy. And I would tell you that I would have no problem letting him ride any bike we sell, even though the first time I met him, he's like, yeah, I want to take one of those Zeros out for a test ride and for my YouTube channel. And I watched his YouTube channel. I was like, I'm not letting take my daughter to prom when your name is Anal J. Analson, And it turns out he's a great guy.
But the Zero beat it though, right? I mean, that's what I saw.
The Zero beat it, and I will put 2 asterisks after it. And the Zero beat it in a quarter mile.
Right.
And the Zero wouldn't have beaten it if it would have been 3/4 of a mile, right? So it was the perfect conditions, a very, very bad, rough road. It wasn't a track. We weren't on good sticky asphalt or good sticky concrete. We were on a side street, and it was go. And so the Zero has 116 foot-pounds of torque and doesn't ever have to touch the clutch. It just goes, it pulls from 0 RPMs all the way to winning. Had that race been another 100 meters long, he would have beaten me. But it just so happens these circumstances were that I had him by 2 bike lengths at the end of the race, because the Zero doesn't like going over 100. That generation of Zero doesn't like going over 116 miles an hour. And the new generation of Zero doesn't like going over 126.
Gotcha.
This bike, of course, has no problem going 200. So, yes, this bike is faster. Now, is it quicker? No, it's almost a draw.
Mm-hmm.
Is that 310 net or is that 310 gross?
That's 310 gross, I think. I think that 310 horsepower on that bike is probably gross. I don't think it's net. I think that's probably 310 on the crank.
Yeah,
as they say, but still 310 on the crank is still probably 300 at the back door. So,
but I would think that supercharger would take up some ponies.
I think that riding a bike with a supercharger was just a visceral experience. All right, now here we go. I'm going to back away from this one right now because I don't think I have anything good to say. So this is the 2020 Ducati Superleggera V4.
Yeah.
I would like to remind everybody that the phrase Superleggera means super light. Like, it's absolutely the lightest thing in the world. You can't get anything lighter because it has the word super in front of it. So Leggera is light, and Superleggera would be super light, right? And that's what this is. This bike is such an abomination that they painted the carbon fiber parts. Usually in motorcycles, the carbon fiber parts are carbon fiber colored because we're very proud of the Italian chrome. And then the bodywork parts are made of something other than carbon fiber. I think this entire bike is carbon fiber right down to the wheels. It is, 220 some horsepower, 230 horsepowers. What is kooky about this? Yeah, the subframe. Yeah, that subframe is carbon fiber. The swing arm is carbon fiber. Yes, I think the needle on the speedometer is carbon fiber. Right. I think the tires are carbon fiber. Yeah. And these are $100,000 hairs a piece.
Have you seen some of the videos of like who was on Ducati, the MotoGP guys, they handed a couple of these bikes to these guys stock and they let them go on a track. Yeah. And their lap times were like 2 seconds slower than or 3 or whatever. Wow. Like, ridiculous thing compared to their MotoGP bikes. It was
because this is a MotoGP bike. This is a MotoGP bike that somebody has put. And if you look at this picture, I defy you to find the turn signals.
Yeah, no, there's no license plate bracket.
There's no license plate bracket. There's no turn signal perches.
Like the new R1s now, they hide them inside here. So that's all.
The headlight is it's like literally it's literally something you put on your helmet. It's a headlight.
Yeah.
It's an actual, like that's not standard equipment. You just put it on your helmet and you're good to go. And these things are crazy. I mean, these are nuts.
But like 99.7% of people that ride motorcycles have no need for this one. So like you couldn't even, I couldn't put air in the tires in an aggressive enough manner to make this worthwhile owning.
Well, I'm sorry, Steve. Those tires will only accept nitrogen.
Right. I'm sure.
No, hydrogen. Hydrogen. So they're lighter.
I thought helium, but okay.
Helium would be a better choice.
Yeah.
So
it's not combustible.
Here's what's crazy about it. I don't like the way it looks.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit it. I'm not a fan of the styling, and as crazy as that sounds, it looks to me like it looks like the guy that does airbrushes t-shirts at the mall.
Yeah.
Literally,
I don't like the tails that are way up in the air like that.
Yeah,
it looks like the guy who airbrushes t-shirts in the mall. If you told him you had a red R6 and you're like, yeah, paint me up a red R6 on the front of this wife beater, that this is what he would paint. And then he put a Ducati logo on the bottom of it because he didn't know any better.
Right.
Right. But yeah, to me, that this motorcycle, obviously, it's not my problem. I will never be in the running to own one, ever. It's got to have the world's fastest depreciation because I know that they cost $100,000 a piece. And
Well, that
also,
and the fact that it's race technology, and race technology is always changing.
exactly. I mean, I think that if you burned your money, it might depreciate faster than if you bought this bike.
Well, and I want to know, so like my buddy Mark, who was always the Ducati guy, he was a Ducati tech. He had like the sickest Ducati, and then he heard about a rumor, so he sold it, and he bought a 2-year-old superbike from the Superbike series.
Yeah.
And he paid like, even at the time, it was like he double mortgaged everything. He was a single guy. He paid like $40,000 or $50,000 for the bike. It came in a crate with all this stuff. For a month, he couldn't start the bike because they forgot to send the laptop. And the only way to start the bike is with the laptop. And then he was starting to get into it. And like, we used to do these runs on Sunday mornings down to New Philly and do all this road, like the curvies and stuff.
Curvies, yeah.
And so he was like, I got to get gas, but I can't use any gas that they sell here. So he had to buy, it was like 123 octane race gas, and it was $50 a gallon.
Yeah, you can only buy gas that comes in a 5-gallon metal barrel.
Or 55 gallon, either one of those. Right. Yeah.
That's the only way to buy gas for these things. I mean,
so like, your $100,000 bike, or in his case, his $50,000 bike, just to ride it was like $1,000 a weekend.
Yeah.
And it was insane.
And realistically, unless your name is on the back of somebody else's trailer, the only way to own something like this is if you don't own it.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only way to have fun on one of these is to be good enough that somebody else is paying you to go around track. So that's cool.
That was it.
And again, for a 25 bike list, I think that it's a really good list because it approaches some things differently. I know that we would make a list a little bit different than this, but it is fun. It's fun to look at that, and it is fun to think back, like in 1923, that BMW R32. That's a bike that I think any one of us, whether it's the levers that come at you the wrong way from the end of the handlebars, or it's that crazy leaf suspension above the front fender, the shaft drive is so cool. I think that there's so many things about that 1923 BMW R32 that all of us, would be like, yeah, I'll take a go on that for sure, right?
Well, and they even admit right here, if you look, like they argued with each other and stuff, and they're not saying it's definitive. They're like, did your favorite make it? So I mean, I think
of course,
compiling something,
No, I really like it. I got to tell you that when Big Ben sent this over to me, I was like, another top 25 list or a top 10 list or whatever. We've been through this shit so many times, but the author of this list, I think, did a really good job, and that was fun, and it's cool,
I would go with the R5 though over the. I think the R5s look way better than. Not that bike looks bad. That bike's beautiful,
right?
But an R5 is like more Art Deco.
And Steve, what year did your R5? What year was the first year it was available?
I want to say 38.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I was thinking just before Hitler. I mean, literally. It was the last bike that you could buy before all the motorcycles went to be military production.
Right. And then they lost the chrome. They went to black painted mufflers because of the war effort. And but I just think the heads, I mean, those are kind of cool. But those heads on that R32 remind me of there's a scooter that had a opposed twin like that.
Yeah, the Velocette Viceroy.
Velocette, yeah.
The Velocette Viceroy.
That Velocette reminds me of that engine right there.
Absolutely. And there were a couple of, if you look, I'm kind of goofy with old airplane motors, and there were a number of jet engine APUs. And so these jet engines, these turbine engines, would have a piston-powered motor, like an actual 2-cylinder or single-cylinder piston-powered motor on the front of the jet engine, so that if you needed to start the jet engine, that's how you did it. You pressed a button and it actually started an internal combustion engine, a piston-powered engine, and that would get the turbine engine going, and that's how you made them work. And so, yeah, there were a couple of, like AJS and a couple of other companies did these awesome little 250cc or 200cc boxer engine parallel twins. And that was how they would get their aviation turbine engines started. And that's where that.
Oh,
That's where that ended up in aviation. So really kind of a fun thing. If you ever want to do a deep dive into, piston powered auxiliary power units for aviation, it's hilarious because you will recognize some of those motors from the motorcycle industry. I guarantee it.
Right.
Hey, so that Rob Report thing, they have this other thing like crazy motorcycles, and I was scrolling through it, and most of it's kind of bullshit and whatever.
Yeah.
I've never seen this before, and this is pretty cool. And it is just a custom. It's not like a brand of electric bikes or anything. Mm-hmm. But this is badass. Check this thing out. Look at this thing. I like the front wheel and the whole. I mean, like that's a cool aesthetic if you're going to have an electric bike. I mean, look
it
at
is.
it.
I do give him credit, except for the fact that is the world's most awful riding position.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not touring on this thing.
That fairing isn't covering anything either.
Right. No, are you not? I like that. You're not touring on this. Not only are you not touring on that, the last time I got in that position, I was in the Army. I mean, that's terrible.
Not on purpose.
No, that's the last thing you have to do before they take you. That's the final act of indignity to let you know that they own you.
But I do like this. This is cool. The front end. I mean, like they did some cool stuff.
Well, the front end is designed to emulate a giant internal drum brake.
Right.
With the really short spokes, which you would see on the Water Buffalo. The early generation of Water Buffaloes had that massive 4-shoe drum brake on it. And it would give you that extremely short, like the spokes are only like 2 inches long. Right. And I think that's what that pie plate is doing, is it's kind of emulating that. It's hiding a bunch of things. I
just thought it was kind of neat.
It's cool. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
it's cool. I'll let you sit on it first.
That's what she said.
What do you guys think is missing from that 25 bikes list? I think for me, the immediate thing that jumps to mind is there was like 5 or 6, well, maybe not 5 or 6, but at least 4 or 5 Ducatis on that list, and none of them was the Monster.
Right.
Yeah, that's what that list. It seemed to be more like just like a dream. Like, what's your favorite bike list? Not the most practical. It wasn't like. It didn't seem like it was like their most groundbreaking bikes. Because you're right. I mean, the Monster was great.
I have a better idea. If you'll hear it, everybody pick one bike from that list they would remove.
I mean, so many because most of them are unaffordable.
Everything after 2000 easily.
So I would immediately go in there and I would remove the Harley Davidson flat tracker.
Yeah.
I would remove it because
is honorable mention though. I mean, it appeared that in the thing it said honorable mention.
I mean, it was in the 25.
But was it 25 or was that honorable mention?
I think it was in the 25.
I think they commented.
Because I thought it said, and we have to mention it. I thought it said the first line of it that it was honorable mention.
Oh, really?
Oh, I didn't read anything.
Yeah,
I read all the stuff and it said
I counted 25. So, but I would take that one out.
Pink and blue thing.
Yeah, I would take out the V1000. Yeah.
Yep.
But it just doesn't have that much to do with anything else,
No, it really doesn't. And I can't even. Where is that bike? I can't even find it now.
I might have talking about 25 bikes. You have to be like, it has to be a subset of 25 bikes.
Right.
I mean,
and I really, if I would have taken that. I think the Sportster being in it was a great idea, and I have no problem with the Sportster being in it. But I think I would have taken out the flat tracker and I would have put in an FLH, like an original Electroglide. Because that original Electroglide, it started as a military motorcycle with the WLA, and then it went into being a police motorcycle, and it was a very well-rounded, and in America, they were racing those off-road. I mean, that was a big thing. So that one motorcycle, that one family, whether you're going to go with the 750cc WLA or going into the FLH, the Electroglide, that family was really, I mean, that's a very important part of motorcycle history.
To what you said before, Phil, and what Steve just said, it is, the first paragraph says, it's not entirely fair to single out the 2000 XR 750 for special mention, as it's part of a story that stretches close to half a century on America's dirt tracks.
That's true.
The XR can legitimately claim the title of the most successful race bike in history of all time in any class and any form of competition.
Absolutely. And I do agree with that as a kid growing up, when we'd go to the flat track races, the Harley XRs were where you wanted to be. The truth of the matter is the vast majority of people were on Hondas. The vast majority of people were on Honda 500s. And that's where the Ascots came in and all that delicious stuff, the 500 cc's that just dominated on the track until you had your name on somebody else's trailer, in which case they put you on a 750 Harley.
Well, until the TZ 750s came along and cleaned their clock.
You're not
within
kidding.
2 years, they were banned.
And honestly, the TZ 750 worked in everything. It worked on dirt. It worked in flat track. It worked on road racing. There was very few things, and that's why I think the TZ 750 was missing in this list. You could have had one less Ducati.
XR, XL series bikes too, because those were the main competition for, like, in the transition from 2 strokes to 4 strokes. Mm-hmm. You look at how Honda put so much money into the racing community for the XRs.
Yeah.
For the small displacement XRs, like the 125s and the 250s.
Yep.
And now there are, I mean, 4 strokes are dominant. I mean, also because of emission control things, but 4 strokes became competitive with 2 strokes. So,
and you know what? And I'm happy to say that I lived through the period of time when I watched 2 strokes that were completely dominant. Nobody could keep up with a 2-stroke. They were amazing. And then to watch technology force 4 strokes to be better. And when a guy would come out to the track, or the guy would come out with his big Yamaha, and it was a 4-stroke, and it had the power on the top end, but more importantly, it had the balls on the bottom end, and he didn't have to rebuild his motor after every 3rd race, So he could get 12 races out of a motor.
Because what did you want? A YZ? I mean, when it first started out, everybody wanted a YZ.
That's right.
And then it just transitioned into...
Yeah, but don't discount the Elsinore. When the Elsinore came out, it was the first real ridiculous motocross bike. Sure. We're going to talk about...
No, I'm not discounting it, but what I'm saying is Honda, I mean, that was kind of I want to say it's like a side project for...
The list was too all over the place, because as soon as you put the Britain in there...
That's right.
And you could... Then it's any
right.
I want a Y2K then. I want to put the Y2K on that list. I want a turbo bike. I mean, it didn't stick.
I think it's family-wise. I mean, it's a progeny. So you look at the R32, and the R32's progeny exists today.
You know what? I think John brought up the point that all the bikes, like after 1996 or something, that the idea of, look, they put the Britain in there just so they could pat John Britton on the back. That's why they did it. Yeah. That's why that bike was there. So many of the bikes that they put in there were bikes that none of us could ever possibly own, even if we earned 10 times what we earn right now. So because those bikes, there's only 300 of them, and they're in a museum somewhere, right?
Smith, so they're the greatest bikes of all time if you were a millionaire.
Right, exactly. So I think that if you did say, okay, we're going to make the rules of the list are going to be a little bit different. The rules are going to be, can you potentially own this bike? Then the list changes dramatically, because the Britain's no longer on there. The NSR's no longer on there. Like, it pulls like 6 bikes off that list real quick if they're bikes that you might potentially be able to own.
Well, and Smith pointed out something that they completely missed the fucking ball on.
What was that?
That is these boys and girls.
Oh, yeah. The Indians, yeah.
How did they not bring up any of that, man? Come on, like that.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you're right. And that's where it's like why these lists end up always being the top 100 motorcycles. I mean, I got a book that was from the Guggenheim that's 100 motorcycles, You
have an Indian 4 sitting there, and you have a Bruff Superior sitting there. Which one do you choose?
You know what? That's a good. Do I have to ride it? Because if I have to,
not necessarily.
If I have to look at it,
it's yours to do with what you want.
Yeah. If I have to look at it, it's going to be the Indian 4-cylinder. Yeah. If I'm going to ride it, it's going to be the Bruff. Yeah, because the Bruff was a performance motorcycle by any standard in its day. It was 20 years ahead of anybody else that came out.
The Indian 4 will do 100 mile an hour. Exactly.
Right. It's a different.
Yeah, but
a different application of power.
But then do you give it to the Indian 4, or do you give it to Henderson, who died testing that and had Indian bought out his company and took over his 4-cylinder development.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you have to look at
the history.
Right. Is it, I mean, are you going by the history or who, like the epitome of the technology?
You guys remember the bike we were just looking at and talking about? The 1974 Ducati?
Yeah.
Check this shit out. It's
Yes,
sold for $198,000.
Yeah, this is my point. Yeah. Just buy the Paul Smart replica. Just
look at that. But look at some of these.
Look at a Paul
shit.
Steve, just pull up a Paul Smart replica.
Okay.
And if you pull up, just type in Paul Smart replica, you're going to have a much better experience. And it's still a motorcycle that when I owned one, I still didn't like it. Like
Phil, every time you say that, I think Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Paul Blart replica. It's on a Segway.
Did auction go off yet for the Honda? Was that auction?
The lot of Hondas?
I was looking. That's what I'm going to go back and look in a minute. Here's your Paul Fart or Paul Blart. What? God damn it!
You're welcome.
Christ.
There you go. Oh, that's beautiful.
This is one of those bikes that it's just that kind of a thing. They're out there. They're affordable. Occasionally, you'll pop across one.
It's 10% of the actual value of the real bike.
And you don't have to. You can just get a Sport 1000. You can just buy a Ducati Sport 1000 and then go take it and get it painted. You don't need to spend all that money, and you'll have the same bike.
Take it to Sleepy. You'll paint it that color.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Hey guys, speaking of owning these bikes, I know several of us have owned one of these bikes. Has anybody owned two of those bikes
on that list?
Yeah.
Shit. I'd have to go back and have a quick look at the list.
I own 7 900 RRs.
Well, that doesn't count. That doesn't count.
You have a duplicate.
I was going to say I've owned multiple R1s. So, yeah.
So has anybody ever done the 25 best motorcycles with square headlights?
Are there any good ones with square headlights?
The 25 best motorcycles with square headlights. I'm gonna gaze into the crystal ball and I'm gonna see a lot of early 80s Suzukis.
I got one of those.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see a lot of early 80s Suzukis.
I'm nominating the Honda Ascot.
The Honda Ascot, absolutely.
My favorite bike.
We should absolutely, for the podcast, we should do the best 25 motorcycles with square headlights. I think that's totally
we can put that together
as an homage to affordable illumination.
There's a guy looking to buy the CB1. I think he's coming up on Saturday.
Oh yeah,
and he's like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure I want to take the fairing off and put the original round end."
Oh man.
Okay, good. That's fine. Just
probably a good idea. I agree with that.
I agree with that.
Take the fucking fairing off, sell it, get some money out of it, and make it what it is.
What I would do, John, in that situation is if that was his impulse, I would say, I'm going to do you one better, sir. I'm going to remove this fairing for you and keep it here.
Yeah.
So you're not relying on him to give it to you when he takes it off.
Right.
I would definitely
He's
say
buying the bike with the fairing on.
Yeah. Well,
how much are you selling it for?
Yeah.
What's that?
How much is he offering you?
Well, I'm asking $2,500.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good deal for that bike.
So
I think so.
Fairing, do him a solid, take the fairing off for him, right? Take the fairing off for him, do him a solid, and then when the bike leaves, then I will I'll put you in touch with Robot and you can sell that fairing to Robot because he's got my old CB1.
Huh?
And I'll bet you that he would put that fairing on my old CB1. Because it's such a
What color was yours?
Red.
So you'd have a blue fairing at the painter. Yeah.
They have a spray booth right there at the shop. I mean, yeah. That wouldn't be a big deal.
So I looked up and the auction is not taking place yet, but I want to show you guys something.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you hold on to anything long enough, even something that like on any given day in 1991 or two, you would see 175,000 of these in a single day anywhere in Cleveland.
Right.
But now look at this. Wait, ready? So here we are. I'm looking at checked and it's still not happening yet, right?
Still not done yet, right?
Let's scroll down and see if anything jumps out at you that should not be in an auction.
Yeah, no shit, huh?
Really? Like that's valuable?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Is that an F1?
Yeah. It's an
F1.
It is. It's the first.
It's an F1.
It's just a
that's
shitty
an F1.
F1.
It's an F1. Yeah. My God, man. Yeah, that is an F1.
It looks pretty clean
or something.
I don't know. Hold on. Documents.
But, I mean,
documentation.
Did it sell? Do we have a price on that?
No,
I don't think it's sold yet.
Yeah,
It's got the factory original pipes on it.
no reserve. The metal's not even like,
No. And you know what? Here's the problem. You see that fairing? That's not the original factory stripe. That's an aftermarket. I think that bike's been resprayed. Because you see the hard line? See the hard line between the black stripe and the bodywork? That's a sticker.
Yeah, they came with stickers. Believe it or not. They really did.
That's not nicely clear coated in, I don't think.
No, but they didn't.
It's from Europe.
Yeah, but they didn't. They did. Like I can tell you right now that they didn't, because a lot of dudes took those stickers off.
Right. They peeled them off. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
it's a clean bike, but not that clean. It's got 31,000 kilometers or miles. Miles, right? Yeah, mph.
Yeah, that's miles per hour speedometer. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, look, it scratches and shit. I just can't believe Meekum would accept.
No reserve. So
it does have the period correct ball buster, though.
It does have the period correct. Yeah, it does.
Because then you know what you had? You had the red leathers with this matching fucking thing on your shoulder, elbows.
Absolutely. Fuck yeah. Yeah, that's you know what?
Right.
That's the Malaise era. That's the Malaise era motorcycle right there.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, okay. That's fair.
I liked when everything had ridges. Elbows had ridges.
Everything had ridges.
Shoulders had ridges.
Ruffles have ridges.
Ruffles have ridges.
I like the ridges on my gloves. It makes it really like.
Well, yeah. If you turn them around, it gives you, it's a nice friction.
I've got one of those circa 1985 Rob Halford Judas Priest leather riding jackets that all the guys in Mad Max wore.
Yeah, with the
everybody on Mad Max had the same jacket.
Yeah.
And I managed to score one of those years ago when Dixie was going out of business, and it was in the original packaging from 1983. And I mean, when I took this thing out of the package, I was frightened the leather was going to break.
That's like when Nick bought those original 1975 bubble shiels, and that smelled like
smelled so terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. No, that was Cam and Henry. Henry bought those, and they made them faster on the Trail Hopper. It added at least 1.5 miles per hour.
1.5 miles per hour.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Dick's doing an interesting little project. He's upgrading his CT.
Yeah. I bought some XR 104. Actually, they're CRF 100, which is the same thing. Forks on Facebook Marketplace for like $50. I picked them up for. And I've got some, I think they're XL 185 shocks. That was when the XL still had the dual shocks. And I think they'll fit. And I'm hoping for like 2 inches of extra ground clearance and some better suspension on my CT90 or CT140.
I'm sorry, this is going to be the CT140R.
Yep, that's right. I got a CR125M Elsinore front fender, which is going to look pretty sweet, I think.
Yeah.
I wonder how that's going to stack up against the pit bikes out at the farm.
We'll see.
That's fair.
We'll see.
So, I mean, in the nomenclature, we have to keep the C because it's a Honda Street, right?
Yeah.
So it's a street, so we have to keep the Honda C.
Can't be an R because it's a 4-stroke.
Well, we have to keep the T. We have to keep the trail. Right? Yeah. And it's a step through, so it's a step through. It's a step through step steel frame. So
CT1, so 140.
140 because it's a 140. Right. Mm-hmm. And then after that, well, you could do an L because it's a 4-stroke.
Yeah.
You could add 4 R's. RR.
Right. But R, I think, is appropriate because...
Well, it can't be R because R was like the old XR trail bikes, right? It was like XR 200R versus like a
on the front. So if the R
you're right.
Right. So if the R was before the number, I would agree with you, but I think after the number
that's right. Was it called the XL 650R?
Yeah, the
R's, the S's had dual shocks and the R's had monoshock.
That's correct. So the way to remember this, if you're a Honda guy or
it could be an S
guy, just remember if it's XR, that's for racing. If it's XL, that's for lame. The XRs were always the performance-based 4-strokers. The XLs were the civilian-based 4-strokers. Yeah.
I like the XLs.
It'd be an RS. It's a rally sport.
An RS.
Yeah, that
would
makes
be
sense.
That would be your Camaro. So only the best Camaros were the Rally Sports, right?
Oh, yeah.
That was the top of the Camaro range was the Rally Sport.
Yeah.
So it must be something about this time of year or something that you chose to pull up that last article. Because I was just kind of snorting around looking for something to do, or not to do, but to bring up. And look at this. The same day that we just did this, Rider's Choice, what is the most beautiful motorcycle in the world? And it's completely different than what we just saw on that other list.
Yes.
Well, this is only after beauty, you know. It's not.
No. Because look at
That's
black.
hideous.
It's not good. But then wait, it gets better because your and mine favorite, whatever this.
Seriously?
That's the Aston Martin.
It's hideous. But then, you know how we all second guessed a certain bike on the other list?
Right.
Apparently, a lot more fucking people like it. Not that one. That's
No.
I was going to say.
no. But hold on. And no. There it is.
Yeah.
So
well, because it's ADV, so ADV never makes any declarative statements. They always are like, "Do you like this?
yeah, right.
Is this what you want in a motorcycle?" I wonder if this is what you're thinking of, because ADV makes it a point of being like, "Don't make fun of people who ride Harley Abelsons."
Right.
You know, ADV is always taking this very centralist, marketable road right down the middle.
The most beautiful bike ever made is that BMW that was totally encased.
The R1, was it? Or the K1?
No, it was old. It was like in the 30s. It was like an Art Deco bike. You know which one it is, Phil.
I was thinking that the Deco bike was not a BMW at all. That I was thinking that the Art Deco bike was the black one.
It was totally encased. I thought it was a BMW that was totally encased. Or maybe it was. Maybe it isn't a BMW, but
yeah.
I think you might be thinking of that Scott 3-cylinder.
No, the bike.
I think you're thinking of the Henderson.
No, it was
not the Henderson.
It was a totally. It was. I'm pretty sure it was a BMW. I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, see if you can.
But I better not open up a screen because then I won't be able to close it.
Wow, type in most beautiful motorcycle ever made. You get a lot of opinions.
Oh, I'm sure.
I don't know if that's the one, but
I can't see it. Oh, that thing. Yeah, what is that?
That's swoopy.
That's BMW.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, I mean, there are a number of gorgeous. I mean, I think that when it comes to motorcycles, there's been more that are pretty than more that aren't pretty.
Steve, can you look up the Scott Model 3S?
Yeah, the Scott 3S. Yep. That's a gorgeous bike.
Let me try to find a full.
Yeah.
All right, here's a shot, I think. Let me do a little.
1934 RS7.
The R7. Okay, yeah. That's the R7. That's the one I showed you a picture.
Here's John Scott 3.
Yeah, that's the Scott. But the R7 is, I think the R7 is every bit as handsome as the Henderson. And the R7 is probably very rideable, whereas the Henderson looks like
Oh, here it is.
That R7.
Oh, gotcha.
BMW first. There it is.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's a pretty
the
good
BMW
bike.
R7.
What about the Vincent Black Prince enclosed model?
Right, the Prince enclosed. That's another great one. Oh man, the Vincent Black Prince enclosed is beautiful. It's EN, yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
But yeah, it's.
Oh wow,
That's a very nice looking bike.
But you know, to me, that comes in. That could just get parked next to a Triumph bathtub.
Yeah,
and
a Thunderbird.
They're not that different, right?
The lines on the R7 are more Art Deco.
Yeah.
No, the R7's gorgeous.
This is almost like a Lambretta had sex with a motorcycle.
This bike is from the 50s.
Well, this bike looks like a Czechoslovakian person saw the R7 and said, I can do that with my bike.
I met a guy who had one of these up by Hammondsport, New York, and I have video of him starting it up.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Looking for a ride down to the Curtis Museum.
Oh, that's
wait. Wait. That's the modern R7.
Okay.
It's got disc brakes. It's R7 prototype.
There
you go.
Yeah, there you go.
That one is.
If you look at the R7, the original old school R7 prototype, it's just beautiful. I've been to the museum. I've seen it in the actual BMW museum.
It's got like an 8 shifter on it, man.
Yes. Yeah.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a super cool bike. And if you look at the prototype, if you look at the design thing that you just had up with the disc brakes on it, that was what I was hoping was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, pull that up, the Moto Studio one. And
that would have been great if that's what they produced, but they produced some pile of shit.
Yeah, they definitely lost their fucking way.
Isn't it called the R18, right?
The R18. Yeah, so the R18. And they just recently released a new R18. Don't even do the prototype. Yeah, production. There you go. The new R18.
Horrible.
Is actually available, right?
Yeah, but this is a bird. Look at this fucking thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It looks like the BMW California with the less of a hump or something. Like it's very it's very, very hard to see the prototype R18 and then see the actual production R18, but they did this year. They started to add it. They started to make it look a little more like the prototype, because I think everyone felt the same way we did when the production unit came out. We all went, "Hey, that's not what we saw at the motorcycle show." Oh man!
And
they would have sold. They would have sold a billion of these fucking things if they made this. That's a good looking bike, man.
I agree. Yep. And it was even a better looking bike when it was the earlier version of that prototype. So. So many things of it had to change for production use. So,
can we look at the AJS Porcupine?
Yes, you should.
And while you were bringing that up, let's not that this is ugly, but let's think of what are the ugliest bikes pre 2000, because I don't want the Morpheus or whatever in there and all the other stuff.
Shut up about the
I'm going to own them.
NM4 right at the top of that list.
Right. That's the Porcupine.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Did it have is that like a 312 gallon fuel tank?
It was like, how do you get the gas out of the bottom of the fuel tank?
Fuel pump, baby. It's got a fuel pump in it.
Yeah.
Hey, I vote for the CM400. I hate T.
CM400.
I hate that.
What did you say, John? NM.
The NM4.
The NM4. That was the one that I texted you guys earlier that Steve's looking at.
This bad boy. Hold on.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. That's something.
There you go.
The NM4 is awful. I mean, it's just awful.
It's an Akira bike. It's just made for people that like Akira and want to. You know what it is? So maybe Stefan would like this because it has the lounge chair built into it. It's got the office chair strapped to the fucking thing already.
It's really
everybody I've seen ride one though loves the thing.
You know what?
Well, they love it because they seeked it out and they bought it.
Dude,
I'm willing to take the Pepsi challenge, but we had a guy contact our shop.
Yeah, what's the past tense of seeked? Is it sucked?
Sucked. He sooked us out. He sooked us out. The dude sooked us out to go get a NM4 that was at Sills. So this guy had contacted us and said, Sills won't just hold the bike for me, which I found that to be very strange because I've worked with Sills for years and I believe that they would do that. In any case, what he said was, I'm going to pay you money to go over to Sills and inspect this bike. And if it's everything that they say it is, I want you to buy the bike and grab it and get it back to the shop and hang on to it. And I'll make arrangements for transportation, which I normally, I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't have a problem doing that. And if nothing else, it would give me an opportunity to ride an NM4. And he was from California, San Francisco, whatever. And that tells you how rare they are that he was going out of his way to do that for a bike in Cleveland. But in the time it took me to respond back to him with like, okay, well, how are we going to handle the money? They had sold the bike at Sills, the NM4. So it's not a high production bike. It's weird enough that people do fucking want it. And I don't know, man.
I talked to Pam today.
Yeah.
Yeah, we bought like the most beast-like snowblower off of them because they sell like power equipment too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So they sell these tracked snowblowers that like they're like tree shredders and snowblowers, like on tracks, and they're huge. They work great. But anyway, she had given me a call, and I was talking to her about one of the CT 125s.
Sure, yeah.
and she said that that Honda's all messed up now. That the ordering's all messed up with Honda, and they have to order every 3 weeks.
Oh,
and they could get only one bike at a time.
right. Yeah, that's unfortunate, and I see some motorcycle companies going to that right now because everything is going to be just-in-time inventory. None of these places are going to have massive stockpiles of bikes hanging around as a result of COVID. So everything's going to change. It's going to be a little bit weird. It's going to be ugly. So we have that to look forward to. I think bike buying in the next couple of years is going to get strange. If you guys happen to be in my shop and see the way that they're trying to do the dealer ordering program for the next year, it's kooky. And to that effect, I have some interesting numbers for people who are nerds and like just fucking numbers in the motorcycle industry. Would you like to guess in the motorcycle world, who had the absolute largest growth? The biggest growth that you could ever imagine of motorcycle manufacturers in the United States, on-road segment, like bikes literally on the road. Who had more unit sales in 2020 than they did in 2019? The numbers are in.
0.
No.
Is that as a percentage of what they did last year versus this year?
Go for percentage. Percentage is great. Percentage is easy. Yeah.
Janus.
Not Janus.
They sold 148% of what they did the year before.
Granted. Oh, but you know the other thing with
They
Janus?
only sold 3 the year before.
Janus might not be registered with the MIC, so they might not be listed.
They're registered with the KEY though.
They're MOUSE, baby.
There you go, baby.
So
they're registered with the KY.
So the number one growing motorcycle manufacturer,
That's
and
not
this is a trick
nice.
question, is Can-Am. And so Can-Am went from 13,500 units to 17, almost 18,000 units. So they went from 13,500 bikes to 18,000 bikes. And it's because
they sell motorcycles, they only sell those things, right?
That's right, Steve. You're right. They don't sell motorcycles. They sell weird tricycle things.
Right.
And so Can-Am went from 13,500 bikes to damn near 19 or 18,000 bikes in 1 year because they introduced their super cheapo Can-Am. So they've got a Can-Am that is now crazy cheap. And that's what did it. So all the other bikes that they do, crazy numbers of Can-Am, spiders that they do. The Can-Am Spider that people are buying is the cheap one, and they're buying it in big volumes. So the number two biggest growth, 28% growth. They went from 18,000 bikes to over 23,000 bikes.
Wow.
Is Indian, Polaris. Okay.
Well, that makes sense because you would think that people are getting disenfranchised with Harley. Plus, they lost Victory, and so the Victory people are aging. Their Victories are aging out, so they're going to buy Indians.
They're buying Indians. That's right. And what are they buying? They're buying Indian Scouts. So Indian Scouts are selling like crazy. And so that company, God bless them, man. Polaris Indian went from 18.2, so 18,200 bikes to 23.3. That's massive growth. I mean, that's big. That's 28%. You'd love your company to grow 28% in any given year. It's just the coolest thing in the world. The Royal Enfield is doing extremely well because of their new 650s. So because of those new twins that they have out, they went, now granted their numbers are very small, they went from 1,300 bikes in 2019 to 1,800 bikes in 2020. Now
So
that
they
doesn't
increased
seem
the
like...
victims.
What's that?
They increased their victims quite a bit.
Well, if they all bought the 650s, I think they're probably doing okay. But I hope not too many people went and got those 500s because we'll be the first to tell you that doesn't work out well for most of us. But anyway, that's a big deal for them. That's a huge percentage point. It's not a volume isn't big, but it's 41%. It's a massive percentage. So that's a big deal for them. It's only 500 more bikes, but just the same, that's a big, big improvement. Harley Davidson. Would anyone like to guess what the percentage or the number of units Harley Davidson changed, and which way do you think they changed?
They went negative by
25.
30,000 units.
Close. They went negative by 23,000 units.
That's what I was going to say. 23,000.
So they went from 125,000 bikes down to 102. So
102?
102.
That's
Yeah, but wait a minute. A lot of their customers died off from COVID.
102,000.
So here you go, guys. I'm going to remind you one time, this is only for the United States of America. This isn't for Europe. This isn't for South America or Mexico or Canada. This is just for the USA. And this number is going to fuck you up because at 102,000, which is the lowest number of Harley Davidsons they've sold in a minute, Honda sold only 40,000 bikes. Okay. Wow. And Honda's down this year. Everyone's talking about all these COVID sales.
That includes Groms.
Honda's
and
down.
Everything? That includes Groms and monkeys and every little bike that they sell?
The name of this category to help you is on highway.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't count scooters. It does count Groms and it does count monkeys. It counts all those bikes, but it doesn't count 50cc Metropolitans and it doesn't count, that. Right?
But if you look at the showroom floor, I mean, the showroom floors are empty.
I know.
Yeah. Like, I can't believe.
So they must have a supply chain problem.
And that's the right point.
How did Honda not sell 40,000 Groms last year? All you see is Groms everywhere you look, man. I'm serious.
They may have sold 39,000 Groms and 2,000 of something else.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So, but that's where they are. So just keep in mind, the number one selling manufacturer other than Harley is Honda at 40,000 when Harley's at 102. So Harley is over 2 times more unit sales than fucking Honda.
That's
right.
Crazy.
And that tells you what country you're in. If you weren't sure what country, I'm sorry, this way or this way, this way, this way. Okay. That tells you what country you're in. Because Harley Davidson is over doubling what Honda sells, right?
That's man.
So that's a big deal. Kawasaki is next in line, which kind of, honestly, it kind of shocked me because I really thought Yamaha would sell more. But Kawasaki does. Kawasaki's very close at 33,000. So Yamaha's half of that. So Yamaha's about 19,000. So Kawasaki's getting more bikes out there. Kawasaki's getting more people on more bikes, twice as many, in fact, that Yamaha is.
What are they selling? I mean, you wonder what Kawasaki is selling. Are they selling the cruisers and the like the Ninjas, or
is it a bunch of Vulcans and a bunch of Ninjas? I don't know.
They did really well with that Z900, like that retro-looking Z900 and the Z900 Cafe. That bike's awesome. I
like the W800 myself, but
yeah, but it's slow. I mean, it's cool looking. But I went to on the way back from picking up my FJ09, we stopped at that Rick Roush thing because it's there. And, you got to stop driving by it. And I was able to sit on that Z900 Cafe, the green and white one with the thing. Mm-hmm. It's comfortable as fuck. I almost traded the other bike in and bought that leaving the shop. It was so comfortable. Like, you don't want it to be that good. So I think Kawasaki has a little bit of a sleeper in some ways with some of their bikes like that.
Well, the fact that they've got 33,000 bikes compared to Honda's 40,000 bikes is kind of amazing to me. That's shocking to me that Kawasaki has that much market dominance. Now, here's a question for you. BMW, Ducati, and KTM. And Triumph. So BMW, Ducati, KTM, and Triumph. I think we can all agree that those are the 4 that are outside of the big 4, right?
Yeah.
So we got the big 4. We got Honda, we got Kawasaki, we got Yamaha, and we got Suzuki. And then we got BMW, Ducati, KTM, and Triumph, right? Mm-hmm. It is astonishing how similar their numbers were. I mean, these people sell about 6,000 bikes per year like clockwork. All 4 of these companies. So all 4 of these companies generally appear to do around 6,000 bikes per year, and they didn't change that much between 2019 and 2020. And I know every dealer in America is saying COVID was crazy. We sold a lot more bikes, or at least COVID was crazy. We have less bikes on our floor. And I think that's what Steve was talking about. I think COVID shut down manufacturing for long enough to create a fucking demand for motorcycles.
An artificial, what do you call it, drought, maybe?
BMW dropped 200 bikes. They're 200 bikes lower. Ducati is 461 bikes lower. That's 10%. KTM is actually about 800 bikes higher, and I think you can blame that on those KTM 390s, those affordable, cheap KTMs, because we know we sold a few of those.
But you know what's neat? It's like I was just sitting there, I'm like 4,000 seems so low. I was like 4,000 bikes, right?
Yeah.
If you say like an average of $13,000, right? That's still $52 million of sales.
Yeah.
Like I was like, how can they survive on 4,000 bikes? But damn, that is a lot of money.
Well, keep in mind at our dealership, which we're a small dealership, we did over 200 bikes.
Right.
So, you know, when you consider that there's 50 states, I mean, how many dealerships are there? But we were number 5 in America for Piaggio, and we were like number 4 in America for Zero. And, you know, it's very strange when you think like there's a lot of dealers who are performing way lower than we are. There are a lot of people who are putting out very, very small numbers in order for these numbers to work. We all can think like Triumph dealers are pretty much everywhere, but they sell 7,500 units in America, right? So Triumph sells 7,500 bikes in America. It's like, okay, well, when Royal Enfield comes in and sells 1,875 bikes, you're like, oh, well, that's kind of impressive, because we know that we can in our brains, we can picture where the Triumph dealers are, but we can't picture where the Royal Enfield dealers are. So
what about Zero? Is Zero on that list?
Zero's not on the list. So certain manufacturers who produce less than a certain number of bikes aren't going to be on this list. And they're probably also in a subcategory that's not under this particular listing. So I would not be surprised to find out that this list covers just internal combustion powered motorcycles, because it has Enfield on here at 1,875, but it doesn't have Zero. And I know that Zero sold way more than 1,875 bikes.
It makes you wonder though, like I'd love to see like what bikes sold. Like did the 300, like did the 300 category sell, or did the 500 category sell, or did the enduro sell, did the mini bikes sell? I mean, it makes you wonder.
I have a question. So Phil, you'll probably be one of the most knowledgeable people on this to answer this. So, you know, I have once a week, I get bored and I log on to Alibaba and I'm looking through all the bullshit that they sell and do whatever.
Right.
They're starting to have, if you go deep enough into Alibaba and some of these Chinese sites, they're starting to have conversion kits for bikes for electric.
Yes,
absolutely. So like they'll either have a hub drive or they'll have, you know, a transmission replacement or something and whatever. So like, is there any chance you've been to Zero, you've talked to these people, are they ever going to do anything like that? Like kind of a thing? Nothing? No interest?
No, so what Zero's happy to do, and now to take the answer no, but let's turn it around. Zero would be totally happy to wake John McElfresh up right now. Oh, there he is. Yeah. But what Zero would be thrilled to do is, if you're a manufacturer, like if you're KTM or you're whoever, they'll be thrilled to design you a battery and a motor and a power controller that you can put into, just like Zero's just signed an agreement with, was it Polaris?
Yeah, for the snowmobiles. Yeah, snowmobiles, right.
So Polaris, not doing too bad, but Zero and Polaris are now this, right? And Zero has, you know, if you look at the Tesla Cybertruck, the little cyber quad that they put up in the back of it, that's a Zero. So that's a Zero powertrain and a Zero battery system. So Zero seems to be very happy to not design you a scooter and not design you a quad, not design you a jet ski, but they're really happy to sell you the powertrain and the battery.
So say somebody came up and said, hey, here's $1 million, start a company. And I said, I'd like to make a CB350 retrofit thing for electrics. You could possibly do that with them.
I'm certain that they could do it, but I'm certain they would make sure it was your name on it and not Zero.
Right, exactly, because they don't want liability.
They don't want liability. That's exactly right. I think, and that's why Zero doesn't have a scooter. That's why Zero doesn't have a cruiser. That's why Zero doesn't have a trike. It doesn't have a sidecar rig. Because every day somebody comes to my shop and tells me, you know what they should do? And
I'd like to see an outboard motor.
Well, and again, I totally agree. A jet ski or an outboard motor, The idea of electricity on the lake is amazing. Do you know why? Because it's good. Because European countries have had hundreds of lakes where you're not allowed to have anything that burns gasoline.
Right.
And they have survived at tourist industry.
Well, and you can tell, like when you go to a dock and something like that, and you're sitting there and you're by the water on the edge, it's always like you can see all the rainbow shit that's floating on the side, just killing fish and whatever, you know?
I don't want to dive in the water and get a mouthful of two-stroke.
Right.
You know? So an electric jet ski is a great idea. Plus, you know how that thing's going to dig? It's going to dig fantastic. Like you jump on an electric jet ski, you hit that button on that thing, it's going to rip your clothes off.
Well, you've seen those like electric hydrofoil like wakeboards that they have. Like they'll go for 2 hours at 30 miles an hour, you know, on these things. And they're like $4,000.
I mean, I'm there. The second somebody wants to do, look, if you want to sell me one thing, sell me a thing that is a motorcycle, snowmobile, jet ski. And all I got to do is like put sponsons on it. Like literally, I can just make like a minor change. And that one powertrain can be a motorcycle, a jet ski, and a snowmobile.
Or even like, I think you talked about this before in one of the shows, but like, you know, just have a battery pack in the motor that you can just slap into different frames.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, you know, instead of trying to make one thing into all the stuff. So
I only have one ass.
Right.
But if I have a 116 foot-pounds of torque motor that's smaller than a bowling ball, and I have two batteries I can carry, one in each hand, like carrying, you know, 2 5-gallon cans of gas.
Yep.
And I can go, here's my motor, boom, and then do a couple of quick disconnect clamps, and then drop my batteries in, and off I fuck. Now, whether I'm going to pound the snow,
right, monetarily.
Japanese mini trucks are perfect for that. I mean,
I agree.
You look at like the dump truck's got 72 horsepower.
Right.
Well, I mean, if you put a zero motor in, you have more torque already.
Yep.
And what are you using in a dump truck? You're using torque. You're not using horsepower is really not consequential. So I mean, if you could take out that 1.5 liter engine, throw in a 112 foot-pound torque motor, and then have your batteries that you put in your truck, and then you take them and you put them in your motorcycle. How awesome is that?
Did any of you guys, when you guys were kids, did any of you play with the Lego Technica sets? So the Lego Technica sets, it was like you had a power unit, you had a motor, and it hooked up to some batteries. But then whatever project you built, whatever toy you built, whether it was a bridge or a crane or whatever the fuck it was, a digger, you just put that battery and that motor into that son of a bitch, and then it was powered. And so the same little motor unit could go into any project you were building. That's what we need. We need that for today's modern world, because I have one man with one ass, and that's all I can do.
Right.
Look, if you just do a typical Google search, look at the shit that's coming up now. Like, look at this. They have fucking EV conversion kits for all these old school cars and stuff now that just drop in. 914s, 911s, VW Bugs and buses and Mercedes and whatever.
MR2.
Else. Yeah, MR2 up there.
Oh, wait a second. The MR2
41 Willys gasser.
There's no reason to put an electric conversion in an MR2. Those things were amazing. Those second generation MR2s, those things are great.
The spiders, I really do like the spiders.
But so wait a second. The price of that, kit, is the kit the $16,000?
I think so.
And then why is the MR2 kit so much cheaper?
I don't know. Let's take a look.
I don't know. Right? Because the MR2 kit is half the cost of the Beetle kit.
That's because that's not a pimp kit. This is the starter kit.
The glue is not included.
So wait, let's see this. Let's do a starter.
Yeah, but there's no batteries included either. So I mean, the batteries are going to cost you $2,500 for 4 kilowatts. So
wait, why is this $16,000 then? So what do you get with this?
I have no idea why that kit is so much more money.
It says turnkey kit, so that probably comes with batteries.
Yeah, that's a turnkey kit.
Battery box is not included even with
yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And kilowatts are starting to come down in price. So as kilowatts have become a lot cheaper, that's making life a lot more affordable. But yeah, I'm definitely a candidate for a vintage Volkswagen with an electric motor. Because that's
really cool.
Yeah, that's
really a sailboat with an electric motor.
Sailboat with an electric motor.
That's really what I would like.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So
yeah, because that's the best of both worlds. You're sailing silently, and then when you need to power, you're still silent. You're just smoothing along like that. Yeah, it'd be cool.
I agree. And
is there any listener email?
Let's take a look. Take a look real quick. Oh, what I would like to say is going back to last week's activities. Would anyone like to explain to the listeners what the fuck we did on Saturday?
We got the authorities dispatched to our location.
Maybe Steve can put up some pictures or something.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I would like to first of all, I'd like to thank all you guys for coming out there, and really you helped me out a lot, and it was a fucking ball buster. And I think we burned more gas than we burned all season in our motorcycles.
I was a little beat up, but it was good. I think it took more gas to get the fire going than the fire department used water to put it out.
Let's take a look at that shot. So this is you guys testing out. You guys brought.
Yeah, we tested we tested out the SSR 110. That's the blue bike, and the SSR 125. That was the white bike.
Mm-hmm. The 125 was an awesome bike.
There's Nick with the need of new pants because he has no knees. But that's
guys, I bought some new motocross pants, by the way.
And I would also like to remind our listeners or viewers that this particular picture with Nick out there and the sun's shining, the birds are chirping, it was 33 degrees.
At best. I think it
was warmer than that. It was maybe 37.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll give you 37 with the radiant energy.
There's a beautiful shot of my TO30. My tractor.
Yeah.
Beautiful shot of my TO30.
And look at the lineup of bikes, by the way. We got the Super Bronco.
Yep.
We have Nick's two-stroke Abomination.
And the 125.
And the brand new SSR 125. Yeah.
And then there's Nick's back covered. We think it's mud, but I think he just farted. We're not.
Gosh, I was hoping you guys wouldn't notice.
Shark, not a fart.
The best way that I could describe the conditions of the ground was creme brulee. Yeah. So you'd look at it, and the top of it looked like grass, but the second you tried to go through it, you realized there was 6 inches of mud under the grass.
The only thing that didn't sink in was the Bronco.
Yeah.
Right. The Bronco just drove over it. The Super Bronco with those giant ag tires.
Just floated over top of it.
Yeah.
Just in case.
There's still mud on your glasses in this photo, Phil.
There's still mud on my glasses in my truck.
Got a picture of the seat of Nick's car?
Oh, no.
That corner right there, I have to say that corner was Nick's.
That's Nick's
creation, and it took the fire department an hour and a half to put out Nick's corner.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, there you go.
That's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to believe there was once a barn there.
Yeah.
You know, in that picture. Yeah.
Oh,
and look who showed up. It's the fire department. Well, it's actually 3 fire departments: South Amherst, New Russia, and Oberlin.
And I just like the fact that you got right there just the
Cleveland Moto
product placement. Yep.
Well, I wanted to make sure we took ownership. Yeah.
I don't understand. What about that was a 3-alarm fire?
Yeah.
There were 9 fire trucks at one time, and 1 sheriff's car. Yeah, and 1 sheriff's car.
It was ridiculous. It was
ridiculous. Who called? Did you figure out? Because somebody had a call.
They said that there were multiple 911 calls, and they said a house was burning down.
They were half right.
Burning down the house.
When they arrived and it wasn't a house burning down, they could have just been like, okay, it's not a house burning down.
Right.
You know?
Like I said,
we're having a campfire.
To a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And to a fireman, everything looks like an excuse to push water around.
Right.
And, if we would have been sitting there roasting a weenie over a 2x4 burning, they would have put it out with a fire hose.
Hey, speaking of sharts, there's your Veloster seat.
I took my sweater off. I took my sweater off and put my jacket on, and so I was clean when I got into my truck. But
yeah, I forgot I was wearing that jacket. I brought 2 jackets. I thought I was being strategic, and then I forgot which one I was wearing when I got into my car.
The truck with your muddy jacket on.
Yeah.
It was a blast. I mean, I got to say, the SSR 125 is a fine and noble steed.
It is, and it's there's a hell of a lot of difference between that 110 and the 125.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the 110 doesn't get the job done in the mud. It'll probably be great at pit bike for AMA Vintage Days or something if it's not too muddy. But the 125 was remarkable. I'm not a small person. I'm over 200 pounds. And that 125 did rip me right through that mud, no problem. So Yeah, I think so. Just so our podcast viewers and Patreons know, we've been sort of banking the Patreon money. And what we're going to do is we're going to use that Patreon money as a budget to help us buy. And I'm going to sponsor it. Obviously, I'm going to kick in a lot from the shop. But we're going to make so that we have a fleet of these SSR 125s. Yeah. And we'll do them with ClevelandMoto stickers and shit on them. So this way, when we do AMA Vintage Days and we have our friends visit us from, out of town and stuff, we can be like, hey, look, there's a bike for you to ride, that kind of thing.
And Steve,
I think really what we need to do, I think Vintage Days aren't going to happen this year.
I think you're right.
I think what we need to do is do that, have our own Vintage Days at my property.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Invite the misfits, invite the Patreons, invite people who listen to the...
Invite the fire department.
Yeah, no, we're not inviting them. No fucking way. But I mean, invite the people that listen to this podcast and have them come out. I mean, we'll say, hey, this is the day we're doing it. We're going to get fucked up. We're going to burn shit. We're going to ride. We're going to have all those shenanigans that you have at Mid-Ohio.
Not a ramp.
Yeah, not a ramp.
No, on his property, we can have a ramp. You don't have to fake it.
And Hoff, you can give free tours of the shit plant.
Yeah.
Hey, anybody who wants to see the shit
One trauma center nearby.
All right. How close is the nearest hospital? That's what we need to know.
So, Steve, your neighbor from across the street did come to my shop to look at the SSRs. So he's interested. And what is his name? Ron?
Ron, yeah.
Ron. So Ron came with our friend BSA Bert.
Yeah, Bert, right.
Bert. So BSA Bert is the guy who got us into the Scottish Games years ago. And so the first time we went to the Scottish Games when we had Royal Enfields and stuff, I wore my kilt and went out and rode with all those goofy guys. And so that was the first time I met BSA Bert. And he's always come out to our Mods versus Rockers events and Distinguished Gentlemen's rides. He's super, super nice guy.
He's got teeth like Jaws.
Yes. And he lives over by the Walmart. His property is over by the Walmart in Oberlin.
Right.
He's selling a chunk of that property I'm going to go look at. But I want to talk to Ron about the property he has that's next to your property. Because I'd really like to buy that. Because what's better than having one backyard to play around in, but having three,
Right, and you could make it a loop. You could go down into that valley, go across, come back up, make that a whole loop, and come back down. And
so when Ron and Bert were in my shop, I made sure to make it clear to both of them that I was looking for property. Now, Ron didn't volunteer up the property he owns 2 doors down from you, but Bert was very quick to volunteer up his property that has a cell phone tower on it already, and it's on US Route 20, and it's literally 3 blocks away from Walmart.
Yeah, but I think that property would sell for a lot of money.
I don't know. So
because another property right on 58, which is right like catty corner from him, like a diagonal from him, sold for $1 million.
I would like to see if Ron really does want to sell his property, how much money he wants for it. And I would like to see how much money Bert wants for his property that he has with a cell phone tower on it, because that's less than 5 minutes from your house too. But I would prefer it if it was property that was adjacent to your house, because then we'd have the creek and the river by the wastewater treatment plant.
Right there, that would be great.
That would be great. That'd be the best possible thing.
But Elmira Tire too, I was thinking it would be a good place for you to have your warehouse, because they're done.
Yeah, that's true. So the idea of having something that's 30 minutes from my house and has enough acreage that we can rip around on dirt bikes and not get in trouble. While you guys were all looking whatever you were looking at last week, I was looking at skid steers. And when you're looking at skid steers, you're only looking at skid steers for one reason. And that's because you got property and you want to take trees out and make dirt bike tracks.
Yeah.
Right.
And, when you're looking at skid steers, that's a whole different world from just looking at dirt bikes.
Well, he had said in the past that he would sell that property for 12 G's.
If those words came out of his mouth in my shop, I would have been stuffing $100 bills into every orifice. Yeah.
Well, I'll talk to him. I mean, you want me to approach him, or do you want to
Yes,
deal
with a capital S. And then whether I buy it or we want to split it up somehow and somebody else wants to get involved. But that if that number is anywhere near close to reality, I've looked at it on the Google Maps, and that property is literally.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, John, seriously. John and I have been talking about.
I mean, I was kind of all over it too.
Yeah.
It has a lot of Osage orange on it.
Yep.
When you look at it, there's a culvert towards Steve's side.
Yep.
But there's a little bit of a flat spot. If you go over, you're going to need the woods there were really fucking thick. I mean, even just getting off the road, like it's right up to the road. Like, wow. But, that's what I was trying to talk with Steve about too. But I'm like, get it if you can get it, because fuck it. Even if it's just swag land, if you can get some kind of road back in there and a clearing, it's at least
property is nice because Bert's property has a road that was put in by the people that put up the cell phone tower. So there's a service road for the cell phone tower and a pad for the cell phone tower that you could use to get half of the way back to the property. Bert's property is really big. But the property that we're looking at, Ron's property, would be perfect for us as a group of idiots to have that, to have that as our playhouse. So
I was thinking too, for if we do end up doing this like Mid Ohio kind of thing or North Ohio kind of thing, we could buy like a little, not a shed, but like a shed. And put a couple johns in it, put a couple showers in it, and then have it, because it could run right through the septic system.
I think we would call it I think we'd have to call it Cleveland Moberlin.
Nice.
But that's something that would be, if nothing else, it's just a fun spot for us to go out and stretch our feet or stretch our legs and ride dirt bikes around. Yeah. Because none of us here need a 250cc jumping through the air kind of thing. We don't need 300 acres. But, having that kind of a layout would be fun for all of us. And again, if we wanted to bust out some 22s and shoot some things, we could do that as well. So,
right.
That'd be fun. Yeah. So it's a good play. It's a good sandbox, and it's close enough for all of us to get to without having to book a, overnight stay.
And it has enough Wi-Fi and cell tower services that, Steve proved before that you could live stream through your helmet onto Zoom.
That's true.
when he did this last summer. So we could,
you guys keep saying showers. I'm saying we just need to have a fire hose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pressure washer. That's fine. That's all we need.
But I need you to spread them a little further.
Yeah. Stay at County, boys. But I don't think we need to go any crazier than that. It sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah. So yes, Steve, by all means, let Ron know, because, Ron and BSA Burt seem to be kind of joined at the hip a little bit. So they seem to travel together where they go. And Burt has a lot of property he's trying to sell off. And Ron, I think, has just the right amount of property. And plus, I like it because his property's closer to yours.
And from his standpoint, he doesn't want it developed.
Right.
And from our standpoint, we don't want it developed. Perfect. We want to we want a couple trails through there.
Yeah.
We want it to be just another area that we could go through. So
it's going to be magic because 40 foot shipping containers are just going to disappear into those woods. Be like, okay, John's got the blue one, Phil's got the red one, Steve's got the white one.
So considering that this podcast was almost all motorcycle,
it was,
to kind of pull it back in and just end with the thing. Our buddies that we went through the whole thing of like the 25 best motorcycles, have the list of the 9 ugliest motorcycles.
Bring it around. Let's fire it up. We got a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I think this would be a good way to end. So
the 9 ugliest motorcycles.
Yeah, and
I like it.
The first one is one that me and Phil both picked as
the Janus.
Nope, it's
hey.
The Bible
you're right.
mantra.
We did agree that this was the worst. We did agree this was the ugliest motorcycle ever.
I like how they say it's like a Yamaha TD900 and a Harley Davidson Road Glide.
Actually does look like a Yamaha TDM 900 and a Harley Davidson Livewire had a baby.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Yeah.
There's that one, and then I kind of disagree. I mean, yes,
Rake is wrong on it too. I mean,
K1.
So when the rake is real odd.
Yeah, when Steve told me that he wanted the fully enclosed BMW,
That's what I thought.
Talking about a K1.
Yeah.
The Ronald McDonald.
Square headlight.
I like K1s.
Yeah.
I don't care what they say. I like K1s.
I don't.
Yeah, it's interesting.
No,
And then
it's
you
not
keep
interesting.
going down, and so they say the Hayabusa, which I agree. That thing's fucking.
Yeah, it's not very good looking.
Yeah.
It is an ugly bike.
But I'm going to own one of those within the next 3 years.
Yeah, for like $40 too.
Yep.
Damn well better not say the PC 800.
So just so you guys know, I'm going to take one of those bikes in on trade for Vespa.
And Dan,
Square headlight.
there you go.
Oh wait, I thought they already showed the K1.
And years ago when I did World Superbike, and World Superbike, we were on Ducati Island. We were working the tent. We were helping people out. And these, to get onto Ducati Island at Laguna Seca, you need to be riding a Ducati. And we were joking that they were going to have a rule that was like, you have to ride a Ducati and Passos don't count. So there were Ducati Passos on Ducati Island at World Superbike weekend that were being sold for no more than $2,000, $2,500.
Wow.
So it was like hilarious because everyone was freaking out because just like Mid-Ohio, but on a higher pay scale, they had like a little, cardboard thing cut out and put on the headlight that said for sale. And I think the one Paso they had was $2,500. And I'm telling you, it was fucking rough. But people were just going goofy for it because it was just the world's cheapest Ducati.
And you have the CD player here in the front, which is nice.
You have a slot for the CD
in there
in the front.
Yeah. And then you have your cigarette, which is, I don't even know what this is.
Well, I like the Illuminati wheels.
Oh yeah,
That's not CD. That's the big 5.5 floppy.
Yes, that's a 5.5 floppy. That's exactly right. And the
and when you get into a tug,
5.5.
you can't see anything because they painted the windscreen. So
that would have been more expensive. When people say, "Are those wheels magnesium?" and just say, "No, they're Illuminati." and
then we got what? Oh yeah, look at that, buddy.
Oh, the battle twin. Yeah, the battle twin. I got to tell you, on this one, I'm feeling a little heartbroken because this was a period of time when I was really into motorcycle racing, and I really wanted Buell to kick ass with this thing.
Yeah.
Because it's just everything about it, Harley Davidson power. Harley Davidson was in terrible shape at this point in their career. They were just having a hell of a time, and boy, this thing was like, wow, Harley Davidson could really get into road racing. Oh,
you know what they did? They took the BMW K1 and they had sex with the Honda 1000 CBR Hurricane.
Yeah, CBR 1000 Hurricane.
They changed the RR in front of it, and then
yeah, it's a CBR 1000 RR HDR Buell.
K1 Buell. Yeah,
that's
K1.
Also in the Battle Twin is also in the running for the worst named motorcycle.
The Battle Twin. Yeah, I do agree that one does look like a tick that's about to explode.
The only one worse than that was
keep going down.
The Ducati Syphilis. That didn't.
Yeah. So
there you go.
So this is the idea. If one single-sided swing arm is good, two is better.
Wow.
This is a scooter motor.
Yeah.
So this is a 125.
Are those wheels off of like a Buick LeSabre? Or
no, that's a Cadillac. That's an '84 Cadillac Eldorado.
It's got the white stripe on the
This bike it's a two-stroke 125. So yay, good for them.
Yeah.
It is a two-stroke. It is a two-stroke 125, but that's the Gilera CX 125. And happy to say, in America, we were protected from these. The EPA and the DOT protected us from that fucking abomination.
I like this. They were like, "Fuck a front fender. We'll just lower the wheel. We just bring the whole fucking nozzle down and call it a day."
You know what? A front fender is completely extra. Why would you put one on?
Yeah, right. It's stupid.
But my thing was funny is this bike is totally set up and it has that removable cowling for the passenger that we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
But can you imagine how anemic this bike is with 125cc two-stroke and two people on it?
And 600 pounds of plastic?
Oh, yeah.
And like a half an Audi logo. They're like, you know
what? I would not even go as far as to say this is a Lego bike. It's a Playmobil bike.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like it.
I kind of like it.
I do. I don't know.
Okay.
Victory Vision.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole can of worms here.
Visions.
Of course.
Of course.
That's what put Victory out of business.
Yeah.
It's a sight.
It's really something. I mean,
they could have done, it has good lines in some ways.
I love the quote, Victory's vision could only be good looking if you lost yours.
Not true. I mean, the thing is like well balanced. I mean, it's a very well designed bike.
Got a big booty.
I've ridden them. I do love the way they ride. I'll be the first to admit. I think that the idea that you could tip the bike over and not do any body damage at all was pretty smart. There's certain things about it that are good, but I'm going to say it's just basically a V-twin Rune.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. I figured this was going to happen.
Nemesis.
But again,
What is
did they
going
ever
on?
actually
What
make
is
one?
this?
I don't think they ever actually built one. I don't think you could ever buy this bike.
Says it never really was.
Yeah, I don't think it really ever existed.
Seriously, what were they thinking when they smashed the fucking tank in like that?
Well, what they did was they took a baked potato and they dropped it down the stairs. Yeah, everything on that bike is just wrong.
I mean, look at this. It looks like a dragon head sticking
Well,
out.
the whole front fender looks like another front fender that melted.
Yeah. It's like totally encasing the forks.
Yeah.
They're like, and they didn't even do like, it's kind of like the Buell thing where they have like the outer rotor kind of something, but not really, I guess. Or
Is the button pushed?
It looks like they took another motorcycle and used a chop gun with fiberglass and sprayed fiberglass over top of another motorcycle.
Yeah.
And painted it silver.
All right, so now we're at number 2. So let's see.
I think if you peel off all that silver paint, there's a katana under there.
Right, but it's a katana that was
judging by the
several
wheels.
times.
Judging by the 3-spoke wheels, I think that if we took all that silver plastic off, there's actually a 94 katana underneath there.
Yeah. But you know what's sad? There's a dude somewhere on this planet, if he's not dead, right now, that's like, oh man, that was the pinnacle of my design.
Right.
Yeah, and he bought the company and lives in a castle and bankrupted everybody.
Yeah.
That's it.
And number 1. Oh yeah.
I like that.
Well, they got the first 2 syllables right. They got the first 2 syllables perfectly right. It's a Morbidelli V8. A
Pininfarina designed.
Is that Pininfarina design? Oh my God, that is Pininfarina design. It looks like a TDM 850 that you surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks like you caught a TDM 850 stealing your lunch.
Getting out of the shower, he hadn't put his clothes on yet.
What is that V8
done
from?
Square headlights in a vertical orientation.
Yeah, I don't know where they stole that motor from. It is clearly a V8. It's the most obvious V8 in the world.
Yeah.
But it is remarkably the back of it looks like a Honda Hawk GT.
Yeah, it does.
It looks like 1992, PC 800 type, all molded in.
This kind of looks like a Sprint, a Triumph Sprint.
It does look like a Triumph Sprint. Sure does. Yeah, the middle looks like a Sprint. Oh my God. Yeah, and you know what? Here's the thing: is that bike looks like it was designed by committee. But they had one too few meetings.
Yeah.
And it is terribly ugly.
And this company was like, hey, that Hellfire scooter company went out of business. Get all their fairings and we can incorporate them into the top of this fucking bike.
Morbidelli V8. I mean, literally, Morbidelli sounds like the lunch counter at the haunted house. If I had a lunch counter at a haunted house, I would call it the Morbidelli.
That V8, they built it themselves.
Did they really?
850 cc's.
Yeah, what
Moto Guzzi does with 2 cylinders, they took 8 cylinders to accomplish.
It's a 32 valve V8, 90 degrees.
Was it shaft drive? Because I can't tell, but I
don't know.
Shaft drive.
See, it's not fair because half of these bikes didn't come to production.
Oh,
why don't you go like bikes that came to production?
Because then they would all be smart pillions and shit pillions and sharp pillions and all that other shit.
I still go back to the CM400T. Fucking ugliest bike ever made.
That's just giving up. I mean, the CM400T was just Honda saying, we're Honda. That's enough. Fuck it.
Yeah.
And they just used the gas tank off of one bike and the side panels off of another bike. And
it looks like a broken down horse.
I'm still shocked that Morbidelli built their own V8.
Yeah, it says
ugliest bike.
Hold on, there it is.
Yeah, oh yeah, in all its glory.
That is hideous. with the
At least the
Comstar wheels. The Comstar wheels.
At least the cylinders are pointing in the right direction.
Hideous. Oh my God, that thing's ugly.
Yeah, the buckhorn handlebars aren't doing it any favors.
Oh. And that tank just doesn't, that's just, there's so many different tanks that are aesthetically pleasing, and this is exactly what you don't want to do.
You know what? I'm going to say it. The tank belongs on a much smaller bike.
Yes.
The seat belongs on a much bigger bike.
Yep.
So there was
The side panels are phoning it in.
Yep. There was a program I watched recently where they said that any bike that's aesthetically pleasing, from everything from a sport bike to whatever, has a line that starts here and comes up through here and whatever, you know, like it's one line.
Right.
And this has, look at this. It's like,
No,
It's got a lot of lines.
It's got a lot of lines. Yeah. Yeah. It's, and you know what? I think that motorcycle was only built to stretch that technology further. And again, just to have a 400 to sell somebody.
yeah, it was terrible, ugly.
No matter how big the seat is, the side panels still manage to sit way out, or still wider than a seat.
Yeah.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it has a tractor seat. If you look at that seat, it's like that wide, man.
They're comfortable. I mean, I've sat on them. I mean, it's comfortable to sit on the seat, but
Hey, you want to hear a joke?
Sure.
Yeah.
So an older white-haired man walked into a jewelry store one Friday afternoon with a beautiful young woman on his arm. He told the jeweler he was looking for a very special ring for his girlfriend. So the jeweler looked through his stock and brought out a $5,000 ring and showed it to him. The old man says, "I don't think you understand. I want something really special." At that statement, the jeweler went back into his special stock and brought in another ring. "Here's a stunning ring at only $40,000, the jeweler said. The young lady's eyes sparkled and her body trembled with excitement. The old man, seeing it, said, "We'll take it." The jeweler asked how payment would be made, and the old man said, "By check. I know you need to make sure that my check is good, so I'll write it now, and you can call the bank on Monday to verify the funds are there, and I'll pick the ring up on Monday afternoon." Monday morning, the very pissed off jeweler called the old man and said, "There's no money in that account." "I know," said the old man, "but you can't believe the weekend I had."
Yay.
Yeah, that was a good one, huh?
That's fantastic.
You guys are thinking, yeah, I could use that one of these
I'd
days.
gladly pay you Tuesday for a cheeseburger today. That's it. I did think about it, and the Yamaha XV 1100 Virago is my personal nemesis.
Bring it up.
Steve hates his CM400Ts. I can't stand the Yamaha XV 1100 Virago.
Oh yeah, I fucking hate this bike.
And there were generations of this bike that they had more gold on them than a Formula Firebird.
Hold on.
These things had more fake gold plating on than a 92 Toyota Camry Gold Edition.
I found hold on. Okay, I found the picture of the most you could not drive through Mentor or Parma in fucking 1990 or anywhere anytime after that without seeing a 75 of these things, and dudes were so proud of them. Like they were like, this is way fucking cooler than a Harley. It runs. Look at here you go. This is the best.
Oh my God.
Yeah. See, that looks like it could have had a square headlight.
Yeah.
Oh, it should have had a square headlight.
They didn't. They made this bike for about 14 or 15 years. So I know at one
the
point.
turquoise one was my particular. I hated the turquoise and white or something.
The turquoise and silver one, turquoise and white one was offensive. They had a lot of ugly color schemes. The gas tank went at an impossible angle.
It looks like the bike was in an accident and everything got pushed up, and then they put new forks on it.
At the shop, we say that this bike came pre-crashed.
Yeah,
because it looks like a swayback horse. It's everything is in the wrong spot, and when you're sitting on the bike, the ergonomics for an 1100cc bike, it feels like you're riding a 90cc moped. It's like awful. It's a terrible bike to ride.
It probably handles turns really well with that rake, and then your handlebars all way up here and stuff.
Well, what I would like to say is, are you guys familiar with what is like a milking stool, like how low a milking stool is?
Yeah.
So if you can imagine sitting on a milking stool and jerking off two guys at the same time, That's the riding position of this motorcycle. It's exactly what it is. It is literally, this is what you're doing the whole time you're riding the motorcycle. It is. There's nothing good about it.
You're so much like what are those Honda? They only made them for a couple years. 800s with the 4-speeds.
Yeah, that was a Shadow 800.
Yeah,
pull up a Shadow 800. It looks exactly like that bike.
To Phil's credit.
But that engine was a great engine, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But the seat height on this fucking Virago thing is 28 inches.
The seat height is 20. It's an 1100 with 60 horsepower.
Yeah.
So it has 60 horsepower. It's an 1100 V-twin. People rave about the motor. Apparently, they eat starters for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Right.
Because it's a high torque motor. The starters are always fucked up.
I give them credit for this. It's 32-degree rake in the front, but how about this? It what did I just look at? It's only 487 pounds.
Huh.
That's not bad. I mean, like,
is that the 1100 or the 750?
This is the 1100. Yeah.
That's amazing. That must be without any metal on the bike. That must be literally just but I have ridden enough of them. I have serviced enough of them. I hate them. I hate looking at them. I hate when they show up at the shop. They're just awful.
Steve, what was your
people? It's always people that wish they had a Harley Davidson.
Steve, what do you want me to look up? What bike?
Well, it's, the Shadow 800 looks almost exactly like that.
The Shadow
bike.
800. She's no beauty either.
That was the one that had the PC 800 engine in it, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the PC 800 engine. It was.
It's the VT. It's the
cool.
VT 800C, Steve. VT 800C. And it also came in the two-tone colors like the red and the silver and the red and white and and the burgundy and not burgundy.
I'm trying to get a thing that doesn't take you to fucking that stupid Pinterest. Now
Pinterest.
They've screwed this whole thing.
I hate that. I totally hate that.
Pinterest is really cool for finding project ideas, but really useless for finding the source of those ideas.
So if you guys want to look at a Honda VT 800C,
right here.
I'll tell you the most important part of this motorcycle. So the most important part of this motorcycle is the front wheel. Because the front wheel of the motorcycle, you can take it off the bike and you can put it directly onto a 700cc Magna. So the 700cc Magna that had kind of an ugly aluminum 5-spoke front wheel, the Super Magna, 700 or 750, this wheel will literally just drop right onto the bike. And it looks so much better with the spokes. And remember the Super Magna has the solid rear disc. So the solid rear disc and the front spokes look really nice together.
Wow, and look at this. The seat height on this one is 27.
It's crazy low. It's crazy low. And I don't know. I would like to know how many horsepowers this bike makes. Because remember, there was also a 750. So
that engine was good, but it only had a 4-speed transmission.
Correct. Yeah, and I think so Steve, correct me, but didn't the Shadow 1500, that was also 4-speed for a while?
The 1100?
Yeah, the 1100.
I'm not sure. I mean, I had a touring version of it, and mine had a 5-speed.
Yeah.
And I had two of them. I had two exactly the same, like the maroon and black.
Yep.
With the floorboards and everything. And, and you know what? I bought it and I really wanted to like it so badly. I really, really wanted to like it and I hated it.
74 horsepower, 4-speed.
Yeah.
That's kind of impressive. 74 horsepower. That's not bad.
It's better than the Yamaha having 60.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Still ugly as hell though. It's sinfully ugly.
Yeah. It's despicable.
Yeah,
but it was the Shadow 1100. A lot of the Shadow 1100s had a 4-speed transmission, and so go figure.
So was there any listener email or?
Oh yeah, hold on. Thank you. I was going to pull that up. Oh, so yes. So one of our Patreon subscribers, Andrew said for our leg lamp project. Remember we were talking about putting like a shade on it. And putting the shade being like gym shorts or something to go along with the sock. Mm-hmm. And he said, no, he goes, use an old helmet for a lampshade and have a fake rubber ball sack like truck nuts hanging down for the light switch. I think he wins. Or I think maybe we combine it and we have the gym shorts for the lampshade and we have the truck nuts hanging down to pull it to turn the light on.
I like that.
I like that too.
Oh, I have a new I have a new ugliest motorcycle of all times.
Oh, geez.
And
Dr. Waters won't let me bring the leg in the house anymore.
Oh, you guys ready? This thing is a masterpiece.
Go ahead.
It's amazing. Ready? Oh,
Okay, so this is a Volkswagen powered bike. So this was this Brazil. So these were police motorcycles in Brazil.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe Amazonas was a motorcycle company in Brazil.
oh yeah.
And they made a number of motorcycles. Yeah.
That's not great.
No. It's for the Brazilian police.
Look at
Look at that picture. It's for the Brazilian police department. And that is the sexiest that motorcycle ever looked.
You know what the back of this needs? A fucking box. The guy's like, no, I want to put a fucking fender flare on it. And he's like, no, I want a fucking box. Put them both on. All right.
I love how it has no curves. There no curves were used when building.
Everything was drawn with a ruler.
Everything was drawn with a ruler.
Yeah.
And it has car tires on the front and the back.
Yeah, and they don't have an
We
excuse.
made the whole body was made on a press brake.
Yes.
And no disrespect to Cameron,
Yeah.
but I could see him riding that.
You know what? That's the best looking picture so far because everything is so dark and you can't see it.
You can't see it.
Yeah.
It really looks bad with the Vetter fairings on it.
Well,
But
it makes a
boxes-
Vetter fairing look tiny.
Yeah, these were
The
police
boxes
bikes.
cover up the back end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a VW 1300 standard Volkswagen motor.
But they don't have an excuse because
900
that's kind of like a Goldwing, and Goldwings don't suck this bad.
Well, I mean,
Christ.
you're right. You're not wrong, but this was what they did in Brazil when they couldn't afford to keep their Harley Davidsons on the road.
Look at this dude thrown into a corner. He's like,
Oh my God! Yeah. It's like what for $1.50 you couldn't put a visor on my helmet. His helmet actually says paparazzi, I think. So but that red, white, and blue paint scheme is disgusting.
Oh, it's so terrible. It's not.
I like that picture where he's he's launching
Oh,
on the magazine.
I want to see that.
Yeah, right there.
Oh, that one right there. Yeah.
On down. Yeah, right there.
The weirdest, the Revenge of the Amazonas by David Edwards.
They got the performance air cleaners on this one.
No, read it. It's a 2200 cc motor. It's 2,275 cc's. Oh, so Cycle World built a 2.3 liter motor. Holy shit! Got it down to 13.28 quarter mile, which is just slightly faster than that 400 cc Honda you showed earlier.
Right. Wow, look at this. There's the touring. There's the
1600. Oh, that's a short block. That's a 1600 short block I had in my Volkswagen camper van. Oh, look at that with the vest. Oh,
Wow.
he just left the gay bar.
Oh, and they got
On that you could do
Look at
two
this.
things. You could literally a sport bike. Oh my
It's
God.
got round headlights. The only round thing on the whole. Wait. The best part though, look at the back is completely all square. Like they're all at the square in the back, but they're like, what would make this perfect? Round fucking headlights in the front.
I like the fact that the one thing that's on the bike that says anything cool about it is they call it a tech box. So they're just playing into the fact that everything on the bike is made of wood with like plastic over it. Yeah, so it's Tech. So scroll down a little bit more because I think it was Tech Palma. Wasn't that it? Tech Palma.
Look at this amazing. Look, this is the new version right here. Look at that.
With bold new graphics.
Bold new
Tech box.
Oh, it says oddly proportioned and quite ugly, except now it looked like a morbidly obese super bike.
Stare deeply into my tech box. Honestly, that does look like one of those Chinese-made children's toys where it's a motorcycle, but they had to break up 3 different molds and castings to do it. You're like, okay, we're going to take the part from the BMW police motorcycle and the part from the Katana.
Oh my God.
That's terrible.
675 dry.
I like how the fact that there were 450 of those built.
Yeah.
And that is 451 too many.
Yeah.
Disgusting. Oh my
What is this?
God. That is a terrible motorcycle. I remember reading this article.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because I was a kid.
Cool. 898 pounds.
It's 900 pounds, dude. That motorcycle is heavier than my FLHP.
Wait.
So that motorcycle is heavier than my Road King police bike.
60 horsepower. 900 pounds, 60 horsepower.
Yeah, but it's got 3,000 torques.
No, 73.
Yeah, it's still not impressive. but it'll run on lamp oil.
It'll
0 to 70 in 14 and a half seconds.
Get out of here. Really?
Yeah, right here. Look.
0 to 70 in 14 and a half seconds.
It'd be better to have 3 of your friends push you.
Yeah.
It's actually slower than a bug or a bus.
Yeah, it is. It's managed to be half the weight, but yet slower than a Volkswagen Beetle.
Look, and wait. At top gear, it's 92 miles an hour.
Top gear. So top speed's 92, which totally means it's a pursuit vehicle.
Right.
Which none of these numbers can even justify why it has a fairing on the front.
None.
But what's funny about it, what I think is absolutely hilarious about it is, like, if you were on a garden tractor, you could run away from one of these things. And how bad were things in Brazil that they couldn't support Harley Davidsons, that they could support starting up from scratch and building this abomination?
I just look at this. What is this?
What it is the world's largest speedometer because they took it out of a tractor.
And this is like a 14-inch headlight.
Yeah, that's the same headlight was on my Suzuki 1100 GS. An impossibly toaster-sized headlight.
Oh, dude, I think the GS one came to about here. This thing.
Yeah, I think you're. Yeah, it's disgusting. Well, you see those 2 smaller headlights on the bottom are actually GS headlights. The upper headlight is off of a 1956 Continental aircraft. Yeah,
With such a large headlight, why did it need 2 smaller ones?
Right.
Why does it need
2 round ones? Look, it's got 2 round ones too.
Yeah, little spotlights on there. Yeah.
It's got an actual Indian on the front fender.
It does.
Not a model of an Indian, an actual Indian, a human Indian sitting on the front fender.
This is my
This is a
favorite.
horrible motorcycle. I gotta say, the Amazonas is the most horrible motorcycle that I have seen in mass production.
Yeah. I mean,
Because they built enough of them, they could erased it. And why didn't they?
this dude, he was an extra for Mad Max and didn't make it into the final movie, apparently.
Man.
You don't know, so you don't recognize that guy. That's Steve Poncherello.
I think instead of racing it, they should have erased it.
I like how the guy's wearing full gauntlets and a short sleeve shirt.
Right. But my favorite thing is like, look, so they have this normal fender coming right back here, right?
They do.
But then they add this fucking squared off fucking
Corner.
Yeah, there's like a KZ1000 police bike rear fender 60% of the way. And then they add a mailbox they lightly ran over. And then they use the other part of the mailbox to be the nacelle for the taillight.
Right. And these are totally GS Suzuki GS.
Yeah, those are just right out of the Dixie catalog.
Yeah.
Those came out of the MGO catalog. I like the car tires on the front and the back on the mag wheels. And I particularly like the gas tank that was a Honda CX500 gas tank that was then covered in some drywall. And
What do you guys think is underneath this sheet of whatever this is?
well, I know because that's a Volkswagen engine.
Right.
So there'll be underneath that's the generator.
But does it need to be? I mean, like that's only like what the whole motor probably comes to here, right?
Yeah, well, the generator will be back there. So, and there's also the transmission. So there'll be a Volkswagen transmission, and there'll be a generator back there.
Yeah.
Is that shaft drive?
Yes.
Oh no, let's see. I mean, it has to be, right?
Yeah. Well, if it's a Volkswagen,
I haven't seen the other side of it.
I like the fact they were courteous enough to hide everything under drywall.
That thing is far from grooving.
That is far from grooving.
Dude, you seriously, like, you nailed it though. This is like when especially like when they first started coming out with the Chinese scooters with like the double rear wheels.
Oh yeah.
This was like their interpretation of what a fucking chopper looked like.
Yeah. This motorcycle just is ridiculous. It is like you asked the welfare department to design a motorcycle.
This is like, you know how Maestro or whatever makes the 12 scale motorcycles?
Yeah.
Then you go to the Dollar General.
Right.
And
This is a dollar. Yeah. This is what happens. The guy who designed this motorcycle wasn't a designer, but he did go to the dollar store.
He also didn't really know what a motorcycle looked like.
That's true. It's the only motorcycle in my life I've ever seen 17-inch wheels or 16-inch wheels that looked like 8-inch wheels.
So terrible.
The Amazonas goes down as Cleveland Moto's absolute favorite bike to shit all over.
You need that for show notes. I will send you a piece of this thing.
Well done, Sao Paulo. Yeah. And your incredibly successful law enforcement motorcycle.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can top ourselves after that. That was
Well, the good news is, from a maintenance standpoint, they probably have dead Volkswagen Beetles all over the place.
Yeah.
right.
So it's probably pretty easy to get whichever.
Well, weren't they? Wasn't Brazil? No, it was Mexico that had them in production until
I
2003.
think they did South America too.
Yeah.
But if you happen to, so if you're a listener and you happen to have an Amazonia 1600 in your garage and it hasn't run in a while,
That would infer that the person that owned that motorcycle had an internet connection.
Right, that's true. That's true. But just in case you do,
Hoffert will buy it.
Oh yeah,
Hoffert will buy it.
They do make the VW Bug electric plug-in, like
There's an idea.
listen to a screaming 17-second quarter mile.
And again, you can just buy a Zero for $9,000.
You know what? That brings up a good point, because the Amazonas is the only motorcycle that I know of that has an existing electric conversion available for it.
Hey, Nick, well to point it out.
Yep.
That's why we keep the kid around right there.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. You can't make me like it.
Wait, did Chris Smith give us an Irish goodbye?
He did.
Yeah, he did.
So did Oscar.
Yeah.
Fucking Irish goodbyes.
I saw Oscar. He got a text from his lady friend and was
I
out
think you're right.
fucking them in the trash on Tuesday. Like he was.
Oh, on the bright side, Chicago is selling Basil Hayden's for $32 a bottle.
Wow. Holy shit.
I bought 4.
Get thee to Binny's. Yeah.
Yep, they had Benny's. It was Benny's.
Yeah.
So anybody who wants to sit on my porch tomorrow and drink Basil Hayden's, please come over.
I'm there. I'll
That
be
sounds
there.
cool.
Yep, 100%.
Anybody got anything else?
No, I think that was a quality motorcycle podcast.
Yeah.
I have to say.
For a Zoom, I think we did very well. I think we could hold our heads with most of the other motorcycle podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
This was not embarrassing.
So that's cool. So remember, if you're listening to this, subscribe to us on Patreon, or don't. We don't care. If you subscribe to us on Patreon and you send us some money, well, then we'll keep doing this. But we'll probably keep doing it anyway. Honestly, your $5 isn't going to change the way we behave.
Before we go.
It is appreciated, though.
If you do $10, I will tell you that the gift box that we send out, correct, the gift box that Renee sends out is it's priceless, because not only do you get the coffee mug or pint glass of your choice, not only are you going to get a shop rag and some other cool swag and stuff like that, but Renee is hand packaging. Just keep in mind, Renee is handling your package. Every time you become a Patreon subscriber at the $10 a month level, your package will be handled by Renee. I promise you. It's something.
I got some fresh underwear for Christmas. I was thinking maybe we could put some of my old ones in there.
You put them in there. So what you guys don't know, John just brought that up, but this is hilarious. We ordered some parts today from our friends in San Diego, Robot and Bailey and those guys out there. So the guys at Motor West, we ordered some parts for Vespa, and the parts showed up today. And in the parts, I got 4, maybe 5 used T-shirts. So our stupid friends that we love dearly in San Diego took their old T-shirts, and I recognize 2 of these shirts as being Robots T-shirts because I've seen them fucking wear them. And they shoved them in the box as packing material. And they also had these little pins that they made that said, certified YouTube scooter mechanic.
That's awesome.
So you can now be a certified YouTube scooter mechanic.
Nice.
So I thought that was fucking genius. So well done, our friends over at Motorsport Scooters in San Diego. They know how much we love them. They have a podcast as well. Go check them out. Because again, what else are you going to do? Steve and I spent yesterday working very diligently. Yes. Many alcohols were harmed. There's a Malort there. I don't know if you can see the Malort.
Oh, I see it.
But yeah, this is some serious podcast action. This is some serious, infotainment that we're doing for
Where was that?
This was at Porco.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we set the thing up at Porco, and we basically, how we do these moto stories. We get folks together, and what we've decided was we had Steve Noble on, and we just had Stefan. We recorded 3 large size episodes, and 3 little mini quick hits from Porco.
And there were so many little surprises. Like it was good. Stefan, he was in a good mood when we got there, and it just went from there.
It just got better.
I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
It's going to be an exclusive series. It's going to be the Porco edition.
The Porco edition. That's why we're dressed formally.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep doing these Moto stories, and we're going to have you guys on the Moto stories, kind of like getting. John is accidentally in one of our Moto stories because we did the Lake Erie Loop.
Yeah.
You cannot do the Lake Erie Loop without talking about John. So
and Phil, like, I was really impressed, man. Like, you must have had a slow day because you wrangled up and looked up and you sent about 310. Usually I'm like, okay, I have to go and I have to be the weirdo that's going through Phil's Facebook to find a picture that fits the story. Today, he sent me 150 pictures, 17 links, 2 movies, and a documentary.
Well, you know what? I do I love when we're watching these videos, and I like when you're doing these and these little things pull down that are like, you know, they're just little fun mini videos and little fun windows and stuff. I love that shit. And so it's nice.
Top of that, but the cool part, the best part about it is that some of these stories are really outlandish, right? And people would be like, people that don't know you, like, because everybody that knows you knows they're true. But people that don't know you be like, this fucking, he's full of shit. Fuck this guy. There was no way that they put a Lambretta inside of a fucking Vespa. But then guess what happens? The fucking picture comes down and you can see that they fucking shoved a fucking Vespa inside of a Lambretta or whatever.
It's turducken.
Yeah.
Turducken. Well, I was really happy that we were able to find the video that John, you know, the Lake Erie Loop video.
Yeah.
And that's got some particularly good.
Somewhere.
Yeah, so that's got some particularly good shots in it, and that has the UPS truck thing where we're talking about drafting and how important it is to draft.
Yep.
And then you see me on 206 pounds of pink suppository going 65 miles an hour behind a UPS truck.
Nice.
So
Yeah. It's a real Camaro. I said, get a real bike, Camaro.
Yeah, I mean that video is a lot of fun, and that event was a lot of fun, in particular. And then, of course, we talked about how Stefan arrived at that event with 7 layers of clothing on, and an office chair taped to his bike. So that was pretty great. So the fact that we're going to be able to show our viewers that. Well,
the whole thing. So we're sitting there. So me and Fernando set up and stuff, and you guys are preparing your stories, and then we start shooting. And we just, at that point, we're button babysitters. Once we have everything set up and stuff, it's just button. We hit record and we sit there. And so the mics are there and they're very sensitive. And these guys are talking, and all of a sudden, I'm holding my lips together and breathing through my ears so I don't laugh out loud. It's good.
So we're looking forward to doing more of them. They're a lot of fun, and they're it's especially good for COVID when I've already burned through everything on Netflix. I've already burned through everything on Hulu.
Yeah,
So if I can't find bad entertainment, I'll have to make my own.
Yep.
I was talking with Peggy about that today. I'm like, the content just isn't there, and you can't make the content because of COVID, and it's like, man, the next year, if things don't turn around a little bit, it's going to be like, we can't even just sit here and fucking chill and watch Netflix.
Yeah, you're running out of stuff.
But Steve, you need to bring your camera, and we need to do the Bourbon Chronicles.
I'm in. Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
I mean, all you guys should be thinking is you guys should all be thinking of your best stories and stuff like that.
And that's true. And realistically, the concept, the Moto Stories concept, it's not just Moto Story with Unkie Phil. The idea is that we bring other people in and get you to tell your Moto story.
Right.
Because Jesus Christ, everybody I know has got a good Moto story.
I don't. I have no story.
I can tell 3 stories about you.
Exactly. I could tell 3 Nick stories right now, and only one of them involves you crashing, filming yourself crashing.
I don't know what the weather's going to be like, but I got a 50th birthday coming up in February.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I don't know how to celebrate that in any meaningful way other than, I don't know. Well, maybe that could trip out to the farm or something, or
do that. Let's burn something else down.
Yeah. And then, and then my 50th
John, when I turned 50, it took me about 10 days to celebrate it.
So here's a tip from your Unkie Phil. I had a discussion today with one of my customers who's a firefighter, and I explained the situation about what happened. And he says, okay, well, here's what you do. He says, you take the cinder blocks and you make a 30-foot ring with the cinder blocks. So you make a 30, not around the barn, but you make a 30-foot ring with the cinder blocks right next to the barn, real close. So that all you have to physically do is just move the barn into the ring. So if you have a ring of cinder blocks, then that's a campfire. But the trick is it has to have a ring around it. And that's why they even put out our small fire. So they're funny about it being in a fire pit.
Yeah, there were plenty of cinder blocks there. So,
but they were in the wrong place in configuration.
Right. They were stacked up, and they need to be spread out
around. Right.
Yeah.
And there were
plenty of cinder blocks too.
So if we go there and we do what we did last week, and we just move cinder blocks into a circle, then we can just start feeding that circle. And then we're just having a campfire.
Yep.
I really want to have a rally there. I mean, I really, really want to have a rally there. I think it has to happen.
Rally there. I think everybody here really, really, really wants to have a rally.
Oh yeah.
We're looking at it. It's like you could have at least 40 like little campsites. Car tent, all the way around the whole perimeter of it. I mean, you could.
What I'm saying, invite the misfits.
Yeah.
Have them fly in, pick them up, bring them out there, give them a place to stay.
Right.
Ask the people, Patreons, and anybody who listens, hey, if you want to come out, come out. We'll have a party for a couple days. We'll have a good time. We'll ride around. We'll do a couple rides. We've plenty of bikes for everybody, and then we'll go home and tell stories about it.
Yep.
Instead of AMA Vintage Days, it'll be Cleveland Moto debauchery days.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, if things are changing and we get to the point where it's September and everything's still shut down, I think we should just pull the trigger and just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just do it as a make it whatever the fuck you want it to be. But we'll be there. There'll be fire. There'll be drinks. There'll be tents. There'll be dirt bikes. There'll be motorcycles. We'll go for rides and shit.
There will be Roman twists there.
Yes, there will, because I can make one. I mean, it turns out I can make one Roman twist, or I can make 70 Roman twists. It's just having the ingredients set up.
Yeah. And there'll probably be some devil's lettuce hanging out,
That's it. So that's a good thing. Well, that's fantastic, guys. It was like a podcast. Anybody got anything else? Fuck it. That was the promotions. Ride fast, take chances.